I'm a DC superhero in Marvel. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 26. I wanted to spend 2 chapters. The waiter at the entrance of the Continental Hotel opened his eyes wide, watching the motorcycle with huge wide tires rushing towards him, and hurriedly dodged to the side. Boom! Exclamation mark. The bulletproof glass of the hotel entrance shattered. The steel frame on the wall, which was like paper, was crushed into twisted scrap metal by the motorcycle. Hiss! Exclamation mark. Then, the motorcycle rubbed on the floor of the hall, leaving a striking black tire mark. Finally, it stopped. The man on the motorcycle got off the motorcycle, wearing a black armor and a helmet with pointed ears. His eyes were a little cold, and he looked around, very calm. At the door, the waiter who successfully dodged reacted. He took out a gun from his waist and pointed it at the man in front of him. Batman. He happened to have seen this popular movie that was recently released, and he knew the role that this costume corresponded to. Where did the psychopath come from? Don't move. If you want to go wild in the Continental Hotel, you may not be good enough. Bang! Exclamation mark. Anton had a blank expression on his face, flipped his big hand, and threw a bat dart. Hiss! Blood gushed out like a fountain, and the gun fell to the ground. The waiter's wrist was cut off, revealing a painful expression. He stood in a pool of blood, holding his severed hand, looking at the person playing the movie character in front of him, his eyes full of horror. Are you serious? An idea emerged in his mind. He didn't intend to fight to the end, and he didn't even dare to think of revenge. He picked up the severed hand and turned around to run away. He couldn't afford to offend such a fierce man. As for the severed hand, he would go to the hospital for treatment as soon as possible, and he could still reattach it. I heard that there is a good surgeon from Strange. At the same time, Anton's arrival attracted the attention of the Continental Hotel. Is there anyone making trouble? Killing people in the Continental Hotel? You violated the hotel's rules. Do you want to die? In an instant, the guests in the hotel consciously retreated. The other waiters, including the killers gathered here, all cast their eyes on Anton, who was standing next to the motorcycle in the middle of the hall. Rules. Anton glanced at the person who said this, and said in a low voice, I came here to establish new rules. Kill him. Someone shouted. Before the voice fell, people raised their guns, and pulled the trigger at the same time. Whoosh. In their astonished eyes, the motorcycle disappeared. Also missing was Anton, who was playing Batman beside the motorcycle. Click, click, click. Bat darts were fired one after another. The brightly lit Continental Hotel suddenly fell into darkness. Blurry shadows kept flickering. The bullet was ejected, and the erupting flames could only reflect the height of the shadow, but could not cause any harm to Batman in the dark. Ah. Where is it? Shit. I'm going to kill you. The top floor area of the Continental Hotel. Winston received a message from his men and turned on the surveillance screen on TV, only to see darkness. But the sound of boiling gunfire and endless screams suddenly resounded throughout the room. Who is making trouble? He frowned, his eyes full of anger. When the subordinate reported, he paused before saying, Batman. Who is he? Winston had never heard of this name. Listening to the endless gunfights and screams coming from the dark surveillance screen, his face was solemn. Who is Batman? He should not be an unknown person. It's a movie character. The subordinate's face was strange. To be honest, when he received the news, he felt exactly the same as Winston. Movie character? Winston looked puzzled, but his anger did not diminish at all. In any case, someone broke into his territory and trampled on the rules in his territory unscrupulously. This is no longer a simple face issue. If he can't handle it well, he will even have to give up his position as the person in charge of the Continental Hotel. The high table will not let anyone offend its dignity like this. Send out all the killers. Winston's face was cold. I want him to die in front of me immediately. Don't worry. The subordinate nodded. The order has been issued. Yes. Winston's eyes were deep, suppressing his anger, and then he said, go and check the identity of this Batman. I want to find out what's going on. The lobby of the Continental Hotel. In the darkness, the huge bat shadow shuttled in the dark corners, as if suspended in the air, harvesting the combat power of all the killers present. One by one, they fell in a pool of blood with serious injuries, but no one died. The successive defeats made the whole hall groan constantly, turning into a purgatory on earth. The killers fell in a pool of blood, enduring the severe pain, and saw the illusory figure, continuing to shuttle through the crowd, like the god of death holding a scythe, with fear in his eyes. If they were given another chance, they swore that they would not stay and shoot at the enemy, but turn around and run away like the first waiter. This is Batman's way of fighting violence with violence. To some extent, even the Joker cannot match Batman's deterrent power in creating panic among gang members. What Anton has to do is to step on the corpse of the Continental Hotel and establish his own order. After this battle, he not only wants to make Batman's name truly appear in the underground world, but also let everyone know that the Batman who suddenly appeared is definitely not a small character playing house. Soon, amidst the wailing everywhere, Anton walked towards the stairs and turned into a staircase god of war. After warming up, Anton became more and more familiar with the skill information belonging to Bruce Wayne in his memory. This kind of enlightenment and reborn change can probably only be reflected by the word opening the door. In short, facing these ordinary killers, Anton will not refuse anyone and kill as many as he can. Boom! Exclamation mark. The powerful shotgun made Anton raise his eyebrows. A black man in a suit and leather shoes, full of elite style, stood in the corner with a shotgun in his hand, leaning against the wall, squinting his eyes and concentrating, observing Anton's movements with subtle sounds. Obviously, the black guy was not surprised that the first shot of the surprise attack just now failed to hit Anton. This is probably a killer of the same level as John Wick. There are many talents in the Continental Hotel, most of whom are proficient in killing and interrogation skills. Unfortunately, these are all left over from Bruce Wayne. Anton calmly stepped into the corridor. Boom! Exclamation mark. The black guy turned around and pulled the trigger. To put it bluntly, Batman's basic armor is better than a tights. In order not to affect flexibility, it only has a light power system. It is not as exaggerated as other world-destroying armor, but it also has a certain blessing for Anton's combat effectiveness at this time. The key is that with the protection of the armor, Anton can let go of his hands and feet. Bang! Exclamation mark. Anton stood still and let the huge impact spread in his chest. What? The black guy widened his eyes, revealing a surprising part of the white of his eyes. He couldn't imagine that this mysterious man who likes role-playing, the armor he wears, can even defend against a powerful shotgun. This is no ordinary equipment. It is comparable to military technology. At this moment, the names that flashed through his mind were all advanced arms giants in the Marvel world, such as Stark Industries, Hammer Industries, and Oscorp. Anton raised his lips and came to the guy. Bang! With just one punch, he blasted the black man who blocked his way away, leaving him lying on the ground spitting blood. Then, he passed the fallen black man and came to a metal door. Bang! Another punch broke the circuit board, and using the skill elaborate knowledge, he easily opened the metal door that should have been airtight. The room inside the door. A man holding a glass of whiskey stared at Anton with an ugly face. "Winston, I thought you could let me write 2 chapters. Anton was quite disappointed. In the end, you only wrote 1 chapter. Thank you for the reward from Emperor Lee. Received today's income plus 7.5. I recommended it at 2 o'clock this afternoon. By the way, please give me some recommendation tickets to make the data look better. Friends who see this, don't forget to click on the collection. Crab. Chapter 27 Winston, I want to report a crime. Winston, this is our first meeting. To show respect, do you want me to introduce myself? Anton slowly walked towards Winston, revealing the lower half of his face with a half smile. Winston never expected that Anton could actually crack the code to enter the safe house. He quickly put down his wine glass and pointed his gun at Anton. At this time, Anton's armor was not stained with blood, and it was still dark and dull. But he killed his way here, and I don't know how many people's bones he broke, and how many people he paralyzed. He was so fierce Winston was under great pressure, and his forehead was covered with sweat. He knew that the gun in his hand had no effect on the man in armor in front of him, but he was reluctant to put it down. You are the first person to break into the Continental Hotel after so many years of establishment. He pretended to be calm and said solemnly, Batman, I don't care who you are. This is the Continental Hotel, which is under the jurisdiction of the High Table. If you kill me, you will not only offend all the killers in the underground of New York City, but also offend the High Table. This is not an attitude of reconciliation. Anton looked at Winston with a calm tone, but it made the latter feel cold in his heart. Winston knew that this matter could not be resolved peacefully. In other words, both parties knew that, even if Anton let Winston go now, Winston would complain to the High Table afterwards. What are you going to do? Winston's face was grim. Revenge. Anton was very calm. You sent someone to kill me, and I retaliated. Isn't this reasonable? I sent someone to kill you? Winston was stunned, and the whole person was dumbfounded. Suddenly he realized that this was the sin he had committed before, and it was a case of a shipwreck in the gutter. What do you want to do to let me go? Winston calmed down. He saw that the man in front of him did not seem to want to kill him. Life Foundation. Anton spoke clearly and uttered these words. Winston opened his eyes wide, remembering that he had given John Wick the last mission before his retirement not long ago. You are. He suddenly had an idea, his face full of disbelief. Under the other party's cold gaze, he didn't say the name. After a while, the clock ticked, and it was midnight. Beep, beep. A lot of police cars crowded in front of the Continental Hotel. Not far away, there was a group of reporters holding cameras, who were eager to shoot the scene. These reporters looked excited. They are usually quick to get information. The Continental Hotel has a strong background and is a school of its own in the Manhattan area. No one dared to come here to shoot before. Although they knew that there were many dirty things here, most of them became reporters to make a living, not to lose their lives. Today is different. Someone specially invited them here, and the police cleared the way. Did the Continental Hotel fall? Who did they offend? A group of people were extremely excited. This was a big news that shocked New York, and it was worth at least 1,000 bonuses. So, in full view of the public, a group of policemen rushed into the Continental Hotel with guns. After a while, the police escorted dozens of bloody and seriously injured killers out of the hotel and threw them directly into the prison van. During the process, the reporter did not hear any gunshots. The whole area was dead silent. So, where did the injuries of these bloody killers come from? The reporters were thinking. However, after returning home, all the manuscripts said New York police worked together to capture gangsters without exception. Little did they know that even the police were shocked when they walked into the Continental Hotel. There were killers and gang members lying on the ground everywhere. Judging from the equipment scattered around these people, if a fight really broke out, I'm afraid that only the National Guard could be dispatched to easily eliminate them. If these were handed over to the police would say they were powerless. They never thought that they were too long. Where did this tough guy come from? Previously, when patrolling in Manhattan, I happened to see Anton, who was playing Batman, rushing towards the police here without looking back. I vaguely sensed the clues and was secretly shocked. The matter was quite a big deal. The phone call from the higher-ups was made directly from New York City Hall to the police station. Police Commissioner George Stacy had already left work, but now he had to rush to the Continental Hotel. As a senior police officer, he certainly knew the Continental Hotel very well. He didn't care about it before, because he couldn't control it. New York City has been established for so many years, and many rules have already been formed. George is not a fool. On the contrary, he was able to sit in the position of New York Police Commissioner because he was just and tough, but also because he knew that the rules of the underground can only be solved by the underground. Just like the proverb, magic must be used to defeat magic. For a person like him who is above the ground, if he insists on getting involved in the filth of the underground, he will only end up in trouble and get into trouble. Of course, when the opportunity comes, he should not miss the credit. Batman. George thought of the reports from his police officers and had a headache. During this period, the public security in New York City was not very good, and the police station had already received a mountain of complaints. Now there is another Batman movie character? Exclamation mark. After this battle, George didn't think this person was playing role-playing. Go find out the true identity of Batman. He instructed the police officers around him. Also, write a report and submit it to the city hall. We can't take all the credit this time. Understood. Don't worry, Chief. The subordinate patted his chest and said, I'm best at writing reports. As he spoke, a disheveled figure with a gloomy face walked out of the Continental Hotel. When George saw this person, he narrowed his eyes, smiled and greeted him, saying, Mr. Winston, there was such a serious gang fight in the Continental Hotel, and we also found a killer wanted by the police in the hotel. It's great to see that you are okay in such a dangerous place. Hearing this, Winston's face became more gloomy. Seeing that his Continental Hotel had been surrounded by the police, his eyes swept across the prison van outside the hotel, and a trace of heartache flashed in his eyes. This was the hard work he had worked hard for many years. It collapsed in one day. After today, the Continental Hotel may become a laughingstock. Fortunately, the name of the Continental Hotel was preserved. According to the agreement, the high table will naturally go to find that person, so as not to remove his power. Chief George, I have something to tell you. Winston took a deep breath. I want to report a crime. He followed George to the outside of the Continental Hotel and spoke in a decisive and high-pitched voice in front of a group of reporters. These people are sent by the Life Foundation. Those people from San Francisco want to destroy my hotel. What? George opened his eyes wide. He never thought that he would hear these words from Winston's mouth. Aren't these fucking people your people? Life Foundation. How could a group of people from San Francisco run to New York to cause trouble? Do you really think the New York Police Department is a vegetarian? George wanted to curse, but in front of reporters, some words could not be said at all, and he could only squeeze out a smile that was uglier than crying. He said righteously, gritting his teeth, you said, I will definitely seek justice for you. The Life Foundation and the Continental Hotel have no grudges. Their purpose is to take revenge on the Daily Bugle. Winston showed a well-known expression in front of the camera and said in a deep voice, as for the reason, everyone knows it well. But why did they cause trouble in the Continental Hotel? George asked. You have to ask the Life Foundation about this. Winston threw the question back lightly, gritting his teeth as well, and the hatred on his face was definitely not fake. I don't need to lie about this issue. In short, the Life Foundation is the culprit. He spoke word by word and made a conclusion about this matter. George was stunned and saw that Winston was not lying. This guy really thought that the Life Foundation was the culprit. But this was inconsistent with the information he had obtained. It was clearly Batman who came out of nowhere who was messing with you. How did he get involved with the Life Foundation? Shouldn't you hate Batman? George was confused. Swish. At this time, a breeze blew. Look. Someone looked up, eyes full of horror, pointed at the figure on the top floor of the Continental Hotel, and exclaimed, what is that? If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 28. Your motorcycle is nice. A long narrow shadow was projected onto the ground by the lights on the top floor of the Continental Hotel. The shadow had wings on its back and two pointed ears, like a giant anthropomorphic bat. People looked up and exclaimed. They saw that the source of the shadow was at the highest point of the Continental Hotel. A tall figure stood like a mountain, like a flying flag. Batman. Someone immediately responded. Many of the police officers present had seen this popular movie that was recently released. In particular, the police officer who received the report and happened to be patrolling in Manhattan was even more stunned. This. The reporter immediately became excited. Big news. The grudge between the Life Foundation and the Daily Bugle can be clearly seen from the recent public opinion war. The Daily Bugle's revelations put the Life Foundation in an extremely embarrassing situation, and its market value was almost halved. How could Carlton Drake not be angry? He sent people from San Francisco to New York, across thousands of kilometers, to deal with the Daily Bugle, but was stopped by the sudden appearance of Batman. The movie Batman happened to be created by Anton Jameson, the grandson of the owner of the Daily Bugle. Is Anton Jameson related to Batman? Is Batman related to the Daily Bugle? The reporters imagined a big drama. They looked at the police outside the Continental Hotel, exchanged glances, and understood each other. Of course, they should say that the New York City government has made great achievements in governance and the police department has solved the case quickly. Private entertainment tabloids are the private reserve of gossip news. Change vests and go into battle. This is the right way to make money. Neither offend those in power nor miss any opportunity to make money. Click, click, click. The flashlights kept on and off. Wow. A strong wind blew. The figure above his head turned into a huge bat, and the shadow projected on the ground suddenly stretched out. With exclamations, Batman flew through the air, flew from the Continental Hotel to the building on the other side, and then disappeared into the darkness. Everyone, you are not allowed to follow the next action, George Stacy said to the reporters around him with an ugly face, and then looked at the person in charge of the Continental Hotel. Mr. Winston, you must not mind going back to the police station with me, right? Of course, to serve the people. Winston readily accepted the advice. The next day, I want to report the case. These people are sent by the Life Foundation. Those San Francisco people want to destroy my hotel. The Life Foundation and the Continental Hotel have no grudges. Their purpose is to retaliate against the Daily Bugle. As for the reason, everyone knows it well. San Francisco, the headquarters building of the Life Foundation. Seeing the news on TV, Carlton Drake was so angry that his whole body trembled, his eyes were bloodshot, and he wanted to rush into the TV immediately and fight Winston for 300 rounds. In addition, the Daily Bugle also published Winston's accusation against the Life Foundation on the front page today. It caused a sensation and an uproar. The Life Foundation has fallen to the point where everyone wants to kill it. The market value has not only been cut in half, but also less than 1/3 of its heyday. If the Life Foundation's own medical patents were not valuable and had a solid foundation, it would have been delisted in such a crazy and one-sided situation. Bang! Drake slapped the desk and glared at the head bodyguard in front of him. Is this how you do things for me? He couldn't control his anger and threw everything at hand at the head bodyguard, hitting him so hard that he dared not say a word. Is this what you told me to do? The voice was gnashing teeth and full of anger. If Anton died, facing such accountability, he would not be angry, but would feel happy. At least his goal was achieved. What is this? Losing both the wife and the army. Seeing today's news, Drake's mind was buzzing, and he felt that the people around him were useless. Eddie couldn't be caught. The combination of symbiotes and humans, the experiment could not be advanced. Even revenge was a bamboo basket, and the basket was washed away by the water. It's too difficult. Boss, the Continental Hotel is a killer organization. They violated the rules. We have reason to complain to the high table. Seeing that Drake took a long time to calm down, the head of the bodyguards couldn't help but say, Winston will pay the price. The high table will not let them go. Complain? Drake glanced at him coldly. You still rely on others? Last night, all the killers in the Continental Hotel were knocked down by Batman and then taken to jail by the police. Instead of relying on the high table for help, it is better to think about what we can do to deal with the Batman who suddenly appeared. The head of the bodyguards was confused. He has been in the underground world for many years. He is not famous, but has excellent abilities. He knows the horror of the Continental Hotel and the high table very well. It was only in recent years that he came ashore and was recruited by the Life Foundation to become Drake's bodyguard, responsible for Drake's safety. But he never thought that the Continental Hotel, which is so famous in the underground world, fell into the hands of this suddenly appearing bat. Who is this Batman? The head of the bodyguards couldn't help but ask Drake. Boss, this man is definitely not an unknown person to be able to fight at the Continental Hotel for peace talks. An unknown person? Drake snorted, his face gloomy. He is indeed not an unknown person. He looked out the window coldly without turning his head. He is the person we want to kill. Anton. The head of the bodyguards opened his eyes wide, full of disbelief. Anton, Batman, Daily Bugle. Drake was too lazy to pay attention to his stupid confidant, muttering these names that gave him a headache, and gradually clenched his fists. New York. A villa area. Anton looked at Jameson in front of him, quite helpless. Old man, you have been staring at me all day. What do you want to say? He looked gloomy, always feeling that the old man's eyes were quite strange. Anyway, it didn't look like he was looking at a normal person. When did you become so capable? Jonah Jameson said, Batman. If you were really Batman, I would eat the newspaper in front of me right now. Really? Anton raised his eyebrows and entered Batman mode. Swish. He transformed into the mysterious figure who caused a stir last night. Shit. Jameson was stunned. His words just now were just a test, not that he didn't believe Anton was Batman. Of course, what he never expected was that Anton would reveal his secrets so easily and without concealment. You. Jameson was incoherent, staring at Anton in armor with wide eyes, and directly ignored the mysterious means Anton showed. I'm merciful, respect the old, and love the young, so you don't have to eat the newspaper. Anton waved his hand again, returning to his original form, and said lightly, but there are some things, don't ask. Old man, you will slowly get to know this world again. Jameson was stunned for a moment, then came back to his senses, childish and excited. Where is your motorcycle? I have to say, you inherited my taste. That motorcycle is well made. Drive it out, and let me try it. Hurry up. Chapter 29. How many times does it take to save the earth? Anton did not agree to let Jameson make a bat motorcycle for the old man to play with, but he agreed to give him a motorcycle prop that looked similar to the one used in the movie. Jameson was satisfied and stopped pestering Anton. Afterwards, the two exchanged a few words, and Jameson went to New York City Hall to deal with some of the situations left over from the Continental Hotel incident last night. Anton then saw that the driver serving Jameson was John Wick, who had attempted to assassinate him last night. This surprised Anton greatly. Of course, Jameson had his own ideas, and Anton accepted the facts calmly. Besides, John Wick was good at fighting, and it was not a bad thing to have this former New York assassin king serving his family in New York, which would become more and more dangerous in the future. Anyway, John Wick was ready to retire. Wouldn't it be good to find a retirement job? I can only sigh that the old man had foresight. Watching Jameson leave the villa area in the old car, driven by John Wick, Anton smiled slightly. He told the old man that he was Batman, a decision he made after careful consideration. The Batman thing itself was not well thought out, and if you look deeper, it is a well-known secret. Jameson is Anton's closest person. Not only does he not need to hide these issues too much, but he can also let Jameson know that Anton already has the ability to protect himself and his family. What needs to be concealed is only the fact of time travel. This incredible thing will cause Jameson confusion when it is said. Anton himself can't figure out whether he has occupied Anton's body or whether his personality in the previous life has awakened with the help of the system and replaced his personality in this life. Of course, no matter what, Jameson is his closest family in this life. After a simple packing, he drove to the Daily Bugle. Anton, the incident at the Continental Hotel yesterday caused a sensation in New York and even in the United States. The New York Police Department has filed a case and is preparing to jointly investigate the Life Foundation with the San Francisco Police Department. Betty saw him at work with a surprised expression, reporting. In addition, there is also a mysterious person who appeared at the Continental Hotel yesterday, the guy who played Batman, and there is currently a huge uproar on the internet. Really? Anton was very calm. How big is the impact of this incident? He had read the news this morning and the news circulating on the internet regarding Batman. The photos with the highest number of views and likes were actually those of Batman appearing and leaping from the Continental Hotel. They were taken quite professionally, with first-class lighting and composition. It's a pity that he is not an employee of the Daily Bugle. Anton was thinking about whether to poach someone, and then he heard Betty continue. Affected by this incident, tickets for the movie Batman are hard to come by in New York City. The attendance rate in other places has also increased to 70%. Today's box office performance may double Betty specifically called the theater to ask and got this answer. Very good. Anton didn't look surprised and smiled. Congratulations, you got the bonus I promised you. After a moment, he saw that Betty didn't leave and asked curiously, anything else? That Batman. As an insider of the newspaper, Betty naturally learned some detailed internal information from the reporter who went to the Continental Hotel to shoot last night. Her heart was like a cat scratching, and she couldn't help asking, do you know who he is? How should I know? Anton waved his hand and didn't care. I just know he is a good person. Okay. Betty snorted, saw Anton's perfunctory, and left angrily. Office. Anton sat in the boss chair and counted yesterday's gains. After yesterday's battle, the durability of the armor has decreased, but it can't be called damaged. After checking, Anton found that the fan value can also make up for the durability of the armor and equipment. Of course, even damage can be repaired through the fan value. This is not the most critical. Defeat the Continental Hotel and get a reward of 2 million justice points. This prompt that popped up on the system panel that only he could see was the issue that Anton was most concerned about. He would not forget that he had to face two indicators: fans and justice. Fans were used to exchange for DC heroes, and justice was used to exchange for the main template hero, that is, Batman's special armor, to open Batman's stronger form. What thermal armor, insider suit, slam armor, rabbit armor, bat enhanced armor, kingdom come, anti-Superman armor, Fenrir armor, Hellbat, 6th dimension ultimate armor. These are all placed in the system space, and Anton was very jealous. He had to go in and take a look from time to time. If it weren't for the air wall blocking it, Anton would have wanted to lick it and sleep with it every day. Thermal armor, insider suit, and slam armor. These three are the cheapest, requiring 5 million justice points. Next are the grades of 8 million, 10 million, 40 million, 50 million, and 80 million. The most expensive 6th dimensional ultimate armor is worth 100 million. If all these matching armors are exchanged, Batman's most complete and strongest Linoop can be assembled, and then like Iron Man, he can use the armor to set off fireworks to pick up girls. Question: how many times do we have to save the Earth? Anton's eyes are dizzy. Last night's action was, on the one hand, to warn the Continental Hotel and to dig a hole for the Life Foundation, and on the other hand, it was for this line of prompts that I saw today. Justice value. The system rewarded 2 million for defeating the Continental Hotel and purifying the urban environment. Then, if we deal with the Life Foundation, we should be able to give more. By then, can we exchange for a special armor to wear in exchange for the basic one? Anton was impatient. He turned on the computer and entered the mailbox and sent an email to Eddie saying that he had found a helper and would soon arrive in San Francisco to solve the Life Foundation with him. Then, after a moment of silence, he called Betty again. If there is no accident, Eddie will be back soon, and I'm afraid your position as temporary editor-in-chief will be replaced by him, the official editor-in-chief. After Anton finished speaking, Betty had a blank expression. He was surprised and said, "You're not angry at all? This is not like the Betty I know. Is being angry useful?" Betty asked him back. "No. Then it's over. But if you're angry, I'll recommend a new job for you." "What job?" "My personal assistant. Then I'll never dare to be angry." Anton choked. "To be honest, Betty, the newspaper job can't bring out all your talents. Why not be my personal assistant? I have a lot of work waiting for you. What else can you do besides picking up girls?" Betty was suspicious. "You don't want to pick me up, do you? I don't like your type. Do you think I can't find other women besides you?" Anton was a little annoyed. "Don't forget, I'm still a genius director. I have a lot of ideas in my head, waiting for me to release them. Let me think about it." Betty put away her joking expression. She understood what Anton meant, and answered seriously after a moment of silence. "No problem." Anton nodded. "You can tell me your decision after Eddie comes back. By the way, please book me a ticket to San Francisco, preferably tonight." "You're going to San Francisco?" Betty was shocked. "That's the territory of the Life Foundation." "Anton, have you thought about it? I went there to solve this problem at the root." Anton waved his hand. "Don't worry about it. Just do as I say and go book me a ticket." You just exploit me. Betty couldn't help rolling her eyes when she heard that. Chapter 30. With the smile of the close. The next morning, a plane landed at San Francisco Airport. Anton walked out of the airport, stood on the roadside, and waited for a taxi. "Dude, do you want to get in?" A familiar voice sounded in his ears. Of course. Anton smiled, came to the co-pilot, and looked at the driver beside him. "Eddie, it seems that you have been doing well recently." "Yes, although there were many misunderstandings before, but now I get along well with him." Eddie nodded, and his face did not show the fear when he first came into contact with the symbiote. He even introduced the symbiote in his body to Anton and said, "It's called Venom." "Hello, Anton, you smell delicious." Suddenly, Eddie's face changed, revealing a ferocious look. The sharp fangs and bloody mouth are intimidating, and the slender snake-like tongue stretches and retracts unsteadily, like a demon who has just come from hell to travel to the human world. Although it was reluctant, Anton could see that this was Venom greeting him. "Hello, Venom." Anton pointed in front of him expressionlessly. "You're about to crash." "Oh, just a small problem." Venom retracted into Eddie's body, and Eddie was used to it, calmly turning the steering wheel. Kai kai kai. A bizarre drift, narrowly avoiding the vehicle in front. "Hey, fuck ow, drive carefully." Eddie turned a deaf ear to the greeting behind him, and continued to drive forward. "How are you doing recently?" Anton smiled and said, "The Life Foundation has been thrown into disarray, and Carlton Drake won't have many good days. With Osborn behind the scenes, he will be sent to prison soon." "Osborn?" Eddie narrowed his eyes and turned to look at Anton. "There is something I was just about to tell you, Anton." "About Osborn?" Anton frowned. "Not bad." Eddie nodded, his face slightly gloomy. "Among the people who arrested me recently, in addition to the Life Foundation, there is also Osborn." "Osborn really knows about the symbiote?" Anton frowned slightly, feeling a little headache. Oscorp and the Life Foundation are not on the same level. If the Life Foundation can only be domineering in San Francisco, Oscorp has the capital to dominate the whole United States. It's not that they're afraid of Oscorp, but facing the pressure of the two major companies, this matter will become quite troublesome and difficult to coordinate. "Don't worry, neither of them poses a threat to us." Eddie was very calm. With Venom, he knew how powerful he was now, so he emphasized, "Our current opponent is only Carlton Drake." "What do you mean?" Anton was thoughtful. These days, the two have not lost contact and often communicate through email. Anton has a certain understanding of Eddie's situation. Combined with the memory in his mind, he has a rough idea. "As I know from memory, there are millions of symbiotes in space. In addition to Venom, there are countless symbiotes drifting in space, waiting for the tribesmen who have landed on Earth, bringing them to Earth, and then ruling Earth. Drake's spaceship just became their hope. According to Venom, it was not Drake who found them, but they found Drake. Yes, according to Venom, 7 of their kind were brought to Earth by the spacecraft. But the spacecraft crashed in Malaysia, and the Life Foundation only found 6, including Venom." Eddie said seriously, "There is another symbiote left in Malaysia. It's called Riot." "You mean, Riot is likely to have come to San Francisco?" Anton recalled the plot in his mind and suddenly realized, he wants to help millions of alien symbiotes occupy the Earth. "Yes." Eddie said bluntly, "Venom has made an agreement with me that he is willing to help me solve this matter, and we can live in peace on Earth." Anton asked, "What does this have to do with Carlton Drake?" Eddie said, "Riot broke free from the protective shield and escaped. According to the information I have collected during this period, I found that it once possessed the Life Foundation employees of the search team at that time. Therefore, it must know that in this world, the person who is most likely to help it return to space and bring millions of its kind back to Earth is only Carlton Drake." He paused. "Drake has always had a plan to launch a rocket. He has infinite longing for aliens, but he doesn't understand the dangers of the universe." "I understand." Anton nodded. "So we have to keep a close eye on Drake now. Once the Riots come into contact with Drake, we will take action to deal with him. At that time, the Life Foundation will no longer pose a threat." Eddie added, "Then, we can free up our hands to deal with Oscorp." "Good idea." Anton smiled and said, "You really surprised me. It seems that you can solve this matter by your own strength without my help." It is with the power of venom. Eddie shook his head and said seriously, anyway, thank you for coming to San Francisco. Anton, you helped me a lot. He paused, thinking of the news that just broke out in New York and quickly swept across the United States. By the way, your movie is a big hit at the box office, and I haven't congratulated you yet. Eddie said, and that Batman, who is that person? Is he our helper? You will see him soon. Anton smiled mysteriously. Soon. They came to a house. This is the house of my ex-girlfriend, Ann Wang. She has helped me a lot these days. Eddie and Anton got out of the car. At the door, a man and a woman were waiting for them. Well, that's Annie's boyfriend. His name is Dan Lewis. He's a doctor. Eddie was a little embarrassed. It's not a big deal to ask his ex-girlfriend for help when he gets into trouble. The problem is that he is now living with his ex-girlfriend's current boyfriend. That's the problem. Anton took a closer look at Dan Lewis and felt that this guy was a good person, but he was a little bit unfaithful. The group walked into the house and sat around the table. This is Anton. You should all be familiar with him. Eddie introduced with a smile. He is a talented director that Hollywood has been chasing after recently. I just watched the box office of Batman today. Anton's first work has exceeded $350 million US. In the eyes of many people, he is a walking gold mine. Hello, Anton. Annie and Lewis looked at Anton in surprise and shook hands one after another. Thank you for coming. He works for me. Anton did not take credit for himself, nor did he think he was of much help to Eddie. As he said, he felt that Eddie could solve the Life Foundation by himself, and he was just the icing on the cake. Coming here is not only to help Eddie solve the problem, but also to get more justice points and unlock more special armors of Batman. After the introduction, the group got to the point. According to Venom, the weakness of the symbiote is 4000 to 6000 Hz noise and flame. Eddie said with a serious expression, to deal with the riot, we must start from this aspect. Simple. Anton nodded and smiled. I can find Stark Industries to customize weapons. It is easy to make 4000 to 6000 Hz sonic wave transmitters and flamethrowers. He took out his mobile phone and was very sure, as long as there is money, I think I can get customized weapons tomorrow. A bunch of poor ghosts were speechless. Eddie, who was penniless and relied entirely on his boss for funding, twitched his mouth. Looking at Anton's confident appearance, he actually felt the happiness of being supported by a rich man. Please collect. Please recommend. The test push effect is average, neither up nor down. Please support it. Crab. Chapter 31. He's already arrived. Seeing this, Anton put down his phone contentedly and felt happy. However, when it comes to being rich, Bruce Wayne in Gotham City is indeed rich, and Anton is far from him. A man who defines his superpower as rich is so terrifying. In the Marvel world, such enviable superpowers can only be achieved by Tony Stark and the future king of Wakanda. One is rich enough to rival a country, and the other is even more ruthless. He is really the king. This is a thigh. You have to hold it tight. In Eddie's mind, Venom made an amazing sigh. Do you need to say it? Eddie retorted subconsciously. After speaking, seeing that the three people present were staring at him, they wished they could find a crack in the ground to crawl into, and smiled awkwardly. Let's continue the discussion. Continue the discussion. Where were we just talking about? Oh, yes, the weakness of the symbiote is sound and fire. Eddie quickly took over the previous topic, fearing that the three people would delve into his previous words. At the same time, a little girl walked out of the San Francisco airport. She broke free from her mother's hand and disappeared in the crowd. 10 minutes later, while her mother was still anxiously looking for her daughter at the airport, the girl unexpectedly appeared at the Golden Gate Bridge. It takes about half an hour to drive from the airport to the Golden Gate Bridge, but the little girl actually arrived here in 10 minutes. This is a miracle. Some passers-by saw the pale and expressionless little girl and were quite curious. But after shouting, the girl ignored them and walked towards the Life Foundation's experimental base not far from the Golden Gate Bridge. Only the little girl knew that there was the person she was looking for here, and she had her own companions. To the creature in her body, this world was very beautiful, and it made people want to destroy it. Stop, little one, where did you come from? The security guard at the door saw the little girl frowned and walked forward, and said impatiently, "Your mother is not here. If you are lost, I can help you call 911. Huh. The little girl stopped and looked at the tall man in front of her with a gun. What's that look? The man's heart sank, feeling something was wrong. Boom. The little girl suddenly transformed into a monster. Although she was only the size of an adult and seemed much weaker, the familiar sharp teeth and bloody mouth quickly reminded him of a person. No way, again. The next moment, he was pierced through the chest by the sharp knife, transformed from the little girl's arm, and then thrown out heavily. The man never thought that he had good luck in avoiding the wave of attacks from Eddie not long ago, but he couldn't avoid it today. There is a cycle of karma, and no one can escape from the heavens. Beep beep beep. The alarm sounded again at the Life Foundation experimental base. Everyone was shocked, fearing that the incident caused by Eddie would happen again. That terrible monster frightened everyone. Many researchers, even if they only watched the surveillance footage at the time, felt their heartbeats speed up and their scalps numb. That guy ate a person alive. Boom! Exclamation mark. The security personnel quickly gathered and went to the alarm location. When they arrived at the scene, they saw a guy that was about the size of an adult, but looked almost exactly like the monster that Eddie had transformed into before, and they all breathed a sigh of relief at the same time. Fortunately, this one doesn't look that fierce. They obviously didn't know that this guy was just possessed by a little girl. In terms of combat power, Riot is probably stronger than Venom. On the other side, Anton and the other two's discussion did not last long. It was nothing more than a plan. When Riot appears, take advantage of the opportunity when it comes into contact with Colt and Drake to kill these two bastards at the same time. Save time and effort. It's not that Drake can't be attacked in advance. The key is that, if Riot doesn't show up for a long time, it will always be a hidden danger. The best way is to wait for these two guys to be exposed together. At that time, it will kill two birds with one stone and eliminate the trouble forever. By the way, Anton, when will our helpers arrive? Eddie was curious. He still couldn't help asking. The news in New York has been quite turbulent recently. I read in the news that the Life Foundation has sent people to deal with the Daily Bugle. How is it going? After a pause, Eddie added, I know what the Continental Hotel is. Don't forget, I worked for the Globe for a long time in New York. Our helper should be the Batman who suddenly appeared and knocked down all the killers in the Continental Hotel in less than one night, right? Anne and Lewis looked at each other. They were a little unfamiliar with New York and the Continental Hotel, and they couldn't quite grasp Eddie's point. However, they could immediately understand the topic of Batman. Because Batman is now a hot word on the internet. The night before yesterday, the photo of Batman that appeared in Manhattan, New York, has become a popular picture on the internet, and some people even turned it into an emoticon package. Want to learn how to ride a motorcycle? I'll teach you. After 2 days of fermentation, the most handsome pictures of Batman attracted countless fans. Americans like cool boys. If Batman is not cool enough, then there are no cool people in this world. As for Tony Stark, that's not cool, that's drag. In addition, with the gossip that went viral on the internet and the movie Batman Begins shot by Anton that was far beyond the passing line, many people regarded Bruce Wayne as a real person. They even suspected that Anton was Batman and Bruce Wayne was just a fictional character he created to hide his identity. There are many reasons. It is undeniable that the concept of Batman was first proposed by Anton. Secondly, Tony Stark and Anton are friends. Of course, this friend must be put in double quotes. In any case, using Tony Stark as the prototype, processing and creating the Wayne Group and Bruce Wayne and the movie, which are as rich as a country, isn't this the real Stark Industries and Tony Stark? With Tony Stark's genius brain and Stark Industries technological support, it shouldn't be difficult to make Batman's equipment, right? The biggest impossibility is probably that in everyone's cognition, Tony Stark in reality has no possibility of becoming Batman. Batman and Tony Stark have nothing to do with each other. They are not only from two different worlds, but also from two different concepts. So, choose one of the two. Anton is Batman. In fact, Anton also saw this post, and he really wanted to leave a message under it. You are so wrong. Okay, let's get back to the point. There is another point in the netizen speculation that cannot be refuted. Batman took action to deal with the killer sent by the Life Foundation to deal with the Daily Bugle. Isn't this a real hammer? As for those who are unwilling to admit that Anton is Batman, they also have reasons and arguments. Anton's growth experience has been dug up clearly. Countless people have summarized and concluded, a lucky prodigal son who will be reincarnated, who has no outstanding resume in the process of growing up. Picking up girls does not count, and everyone can spend money. But such a prodigal son suddenly made an excellent movie. After dropping out of school, pioneered superheroes, and even defined this type of movie. These people generally believe that Batman is someone Anton knows. Anton's success must be due to the guidance of Bruce Wayne behind the scenes. Otherwise, how could a prodigal son suddenly become a talented director? As long as there is someone behind him, even a pig can find a vent to fly. Both sides swore at each other and argued sharply, neither of them giving in, and the argument was extremely fierce. Because of Eddie's relationship, Annie and Lewis also paid attention to the Daily Bugle. Naturally, they were familiar with Anton, the man behind the scenes of the Daily Bugle. They were very concerned about this topic. Looking at Anton at this time, like Eddie, he was eager to know the answer. Seeing this, Anton chuckled and said calmly, "Batman. In fact, he's already here." After a pause, Anton smiled mysteriously. "He will appear in front of you anytime you need him." Chapter 32. It's time to change a car. After Anton finished speaking, Eddie and the other two felt relieved. Judging from Anton's words, they were sure that Batman, the superhero who had recently become popular on the internet, had arrived in San Francisco. However, Batman would appear at the most critical moment, not now. Of course, influenced by online discussions, Annie and Lewis had doubted the possibility that Anton was Batman, but they all thought that it was unlikely. Anton's experience in the past 20 years had been thoroughly dug up, and he was just a rich kid. Public opinion generally believed that Anton must have some connection with Batman, and he might even be Batman's spokesperson. However, whether Anton was Batman was still in doubt. "Before you came, I thought you were really Batman, Anton." After the conversation, the atmosphere became harmonious, and Annie even made a little joke. "Maybe you are right." Anton took over and shrugged. "Of course, my biggest dream is to be a prodigal son and inherit the old man's 10 billion fortune." "I understand." Eddie did not doubt the truth of Anton's words. He reviewed the whole thing and knew clearly that Anton had gotten into trouble with the Life Foundation because of him. Faced with the threat of a killer, Anton had to find a helper like Batman. He was deeply moved. With such a boss, he felt so safe. "Oh, he really loves you." Venom sighed in his heart. "This should be love, right? Eddie, I like your boss." "Shut up." Eddie's mouth twitched, and he scolded subconsciously. "Huh." This sound attracted the attention of the three again. Eddie felt the gaze of the three again. His body stiffened, his face flushed with embarrassment, and he waved his hands repeatedly. "No, no, no, I'm not talking about you. You understand, it's Venom. We understand." Annie rolled her eyes. "We actually really want to know, what did Venom just say?" The next day, Anton went to the branch of Stark Industries in San Francisco to get weapons. Eddie and others disguised themselves and explored intelligence in the headquarters building of the Life Foundation and near the experimental base. The rocket project base established by the Life Foundation is also next to the experimental base. Golden Gate Bridge. Drake really worked hard on the famous scenic spots in San Francisco. This is another project that has invested tens of billions, even hundreds of billions of dollars, for research and development and manufacturing. Unfortunately, the Life Foundation is about to fail, and Oscorp is eager to take over. There is a reason why the Green Goblin is called the Green Goblin. Not only does he love green, the second generation Green Goblin in the old version of Spider-Man, Harry Osborn, was cheated on by his good brother Peter Parker while dating Mary Jane. It's a family inheritance. At this time, Eddie stared at the rocket project base and the standing rocket. Venom attached to him suddenly spoke. "The riot has come to San Francisco." The voice was low. It suddenly sounded in Eddie's mind. "How do you know?" Eddie was stunned and responded in a low voice. "Aren't you with me these days?" "I saw it," Venom said solemnly, "right in front of you." The voice fell. Eddie looked intently and saw Carl and Drake walking out from one end of the rocket base, and his pupils shrank suddenly. "What?" He was shocked and immediately understood what venom meant. Drake has already joined Riot and become Riot's host. This is too sudden. Beep. Suddenly, the phone in his arms rang, and the caller was Annie. Eddie, we just found out that Drake has restarted the rocket launch plan. There is something wrong with him. He may have become Riot's host. Annie was very anxious. I know, I already know. Eddie was about to answer, but he was startled. He looked up and saw Drake looking in his direction. Swish. This look was like a sharp sword, piercing through the dense forest and capturing the figure in the dense forest. Prepare for the launch of the rocket as soon as possible. I will control the spacecraft myself. The configuration file and debugging are not important. I only want the rocket to take off. Understand? Drake, who had just arrived at the rocket base for inspection, paused, looked up somewhere, and a sneer appeared at the corner of his lips. Venom? Tris, gather everyone, bring your weapons, and block the surroundings, especially the dense forest. He took the lead and walked towards the place where his eyes were directed. Understood. After the author reviewed Venom, the bodyguard leader, who finally had a name, didn't even dare to ask why, and simply nodded. Boom. Then, Tris looked shocked and dumbfounded. Drake's legs bent and bounced, and he jumped up, flew dozens of meters into the air, and landed in the dense forest. Eddie didn't run away, looking at Drake in front of him, his face full of solemnity. Venom. Drake turned into Riot, nearly 3 meters tall, with gnarled muscles, sharp fangs and a bloody mouth. Except for a slight difference in color, he was almost exactly the same as Venom. Come with me, Riot said in a low voice, with a ferocious smile, and his words were full of bewitching magic. He said slowly, let's go pick up our people and occupy this planet. No. Venom flatly refused. I won't let you destroy this world. You are really a waste. Riot's ugly face showed tyranny and disdain. He transformed his hands into a giant axe and pounced on Venom like a tiger descending from a mountain, then die. Anton had no idea that Eddie had transformed into Venom and was facing Drake's incarnation of Riot near the Golden Gate Bridge. He had just driven away from the San Francisco branch of Stark Industries, and behind him were the sonic weapons and flamethrowers that Stark Industries had rushed to make overnight. The technical content of these two weapons was not high, and Anton paid a lot of money so he could place an order in the early morning and get the weapons at night. If the technical content of the weapons involved was higher, the time would have to be extended later. It must be said that the weaknesses of the symbiote were indeed too easy to attack. Anton suspected that, even if Drake succeeded in bringing all the symbiotes on the comet to Earth, it would at most cause chaos, and it would never destroy the Earth. The civilization that humans have cultivated for thousands of years is not so vulnerable. Ring, ring, ring. Suddenly, the phone next to him rang. Annie, I've got the weapon. What? Eddie might be in trouble? Drake has become the host of the riot. Anton's face changed slightly, and he soothed. Don't worry, I'll be there right away. You don't have to go, it's too dangerous. Okay, I will immediately notify Batman to support Eddie. After hanging up the phone and looking at the route, he slammed on the brakes and parked the car in a remote suburb. Seeing that there was no one around, he summoned the vehicle with an idea. It's time to change a car. A car that can fly. Chapter 33, that's it. Golden Gate Bridge. Two monsters were fighting back and forth on the bridge, scaring the vehicles on the roadside to crash back and forth. Some unlucky people fell off the bridge with their cars and people and fell into the sea. The waves rolled and the bodies could not be found. Countless terrified San Francisco citizens got out of their cars, screaming for help while running wildly. There were fearless people holding their mobile phones at the bridgehead and taking pictures. The internet addict felt that he was in a dreamland with two monsters in the game fighting madly. He didn't care that the danger was approaching step by step. He felt that he was hiding far away. This video will definitely get over 100 million hits if it is uploaded to the internet. The internet addict was very happy, as if he had become a video blogger with millions of fans, married a beautiful and rich woman, and reached the peak of his life from then on. Boom. Suddenly, the two monsters hit from the middle of the bridge to the bridgehead. The internet addict panicked. Run. Someone shouted at him. His legs became weak, and all the fantasies in his heart disappeared, and his mind was full of regret. Boom boom. Exclamation mark. Just when the two monsters were about to reach the bridge and tear him, the road blocker, into pieces, a pure black car with a cool shape, came flying from the sky in the distance. It really came flying. What is that? A flying car? Oh my god. There's a person standing at the front of the car, and there's a person on it. Wait, that person looks familiar. A group of temporarily safe passers-by stared at the car flying in the air, their eyes fixed on the man standing at the front of the car with a cape flying like a flag behind him. Batman. Someone reacted quickly. Recently, topics about Batman have frequently been on hot searches, and even the market value of the Daily Bugle has been pushed up. With such a huge influence, Batman's reputation is no less than that of internet celebrities. It's even comparable to many Hollywood stars. After all, there are only a few people who don't know how to surf the internet. Most people will pay attention to hot topics on the internet, and of course they know Batman. In fact, many people present still have the handsome photo that is widely circulated on the internet in their mobile phones. Batman is here to help us. It's really Batman. The internet addicted youth at the Golden Gate Bridge was ecstatic, thinking he was saved. Save me. Batman, I'm your fan. I'm here. He shouted loudly. But while attracting Batman's attention, he also encountered a devastating blow from two monsters. Bang, bang, bang. The two monsters pulled up the railings on the wall by the roots, twisted the steel railings into a twist with a light pinch of their palms, and threw them at each other. Dodging left and right, the railings smashed straight at the internet addicted youth. Shit. The internet addicted youth had no time to escape, staring at the iron railings with his eyes wide open, as if he would be pierced through the body by the sharp end in the next second. Oh no. God bless. Passers-by in the distance saw this, clenched their fists, felt cold on their backs, and were very nervous. Some people closed their eyes, fearing that they would see a bloody scene. At this time, the internet addicted youth didn't notice at all, and a strong wind came from above his head. When the railing was less than a meter away from him, the young man felt his face was scratched by the airwaves from the railing, and a black figure fell from the sky like a meteor. Boom! Exclamation mark. The black figure landed straight on the railing, and stepped on the railing into the bridge. The huge wind and waves mixed with stone chips hit the face of the internet addict, but he seemed not to feel it. He was only grateful and ecstatic for surviving the disaster. Staring at the flying cape of Batman in front of him, he was so excited that his whole body trembled. You, Batman, you saved me. The internet addict was incoherent. He held his mobile phone tightly and did not forget to take pictures until now. He felt that he was so happy that he almost fainted. Leave here. Anton glanced at him lightly, retracted his gaze, and looked at the two symbiotes who were still fighting fiercely not far away. Venom was completely suppressed by Riot, and had no power to fight back. As Venom said, Riot's fighting power was stronger than his, and the situation was very bad. Ignoring the young man who was addicted to the internet, and wanted to say something, Anton stepped on the ground, and ran towards the two symbiotes. The Batmobile above his head remained in the air, and moved with his position. Whoosh! With a quick movement, Anton arrived at the battle range. Riot noticed that someone was messing with the situation, and seemed very arrogant. Another little shrimp? Little shrimp? Venom sneered inwardly. Batman's arrival meant that he brought extremely lethal weapons. These weapons are fatal to the symbiotes. Little shrimp? Anton also heard this, and the corners of his mouth revealed under his helmet outlined a cold smile. He raised his hand slightly, and the chassis of the Batmobile above his head opened. Two weapons suddenly fell down. Venom, entangle this guy. Don't let him run away, Anton said lightly. Of course. Venom agreed immediately. Run. Riot was furious, and roared, you think you can let me escape? Little guy, I'm going to eat you bit by bit. Oh, wait and see. Anton replied calmly, stepped on the ground, and grabbed the fallen weapon in the air. At the same time, Drake in Riot's body seemed to have communicated with it. The two realized that Venom and others had a magic weapon to win, so they ignored Venom's attack and rushed to kill Anton. Batman, be careful. Venom saw that he could not stop Riot and hurriedly reminded. Humph. At this time, Anton had already got the weapon and activated the sound wave without hesitation. The sound of 4000 to 6000 hertz exploded in his ears. Riot immediately lost his strength, collapsed on the ground and rolled wildly. His body was like boiling water, suddenly boiling, just like Sun Wukong, who was chanted the Tight-Hoop curse. Venom, who was not far away, was also in great pain. Immediately afterwards, Anton twisted his waist and activated the flamethrower. The temperature of thousands of degrees was horrifying. Even though he was more than 10 meters away, Venom felt that every part of his body was groaning in pain, not to mention Riot, who was facing the flames. "You look like you are about to die." Anton sneered at Riot, who fell to the ground, with no intention of stopping. He taunted wildly and said sarcastically, "That's it? Is this all a symbiote can do? You just said you would eat me. How come you don't keep your word? Seeing your solemn promise, I thought you could play to the next chapter, but you died in the middle of the chapter. This is so disappointing." Eddie in Venom's body felt sour. No wonder Anton and Tony Stark have become friends who must be quoted in double quotes. In some ways, these two people are really terrible. This scene was all filmed by the internet addict youth who Anton had just rescued. It's not that he didn't want to leave, but his legs were numb, and he was shaking, because of nervousness and fear. He couldn't move, even if he wanted to. "If I don't get famous this time, it will be unforgivable," or thought flashed through the mind of the internet addicted young man. Soon, he saw the monster in front of him withering like a flower under the burning flames, and a human body was peeled off from the monster. As a citizen of San Francisco, he was very familiar with this person, so he opened his eyes wide and was shocked. Carlton Drake, the founder of the Life Foundation. It's him. This monster turned out to be him. Chapter 34. Slightly bald man. Who is the person in the other monster's body? The internet addicted young man was filled with curiosity. He saw Batman turn off the sonic instrument, and the noisy sound disappeared in his ears. Swish. The other monster suddenly looked at him. At this time, the internet addicted young man, who had finally regained his mobility, was in a panic, and hurriedly fled from the bridgehead. How could he care about who was in the other monster's body? Fear took over again, and the internet addicted young man finally moved away from the Golden Gate Bridge, and squeezed into the crowd farther away before he relaxed. At this time on the Golden Gate Bridge, Anton carried the dying Drake, and looked at Venom. "You should not be exposed now. Go first. I will take care of the rest," Anton ordered. Understood. Eddie solved Drake and Venom solved Riot, and both felt much more relaxed. Agree. Stay in Venom's state, and jump into the sea. Anton jumped up, holding the unconscious Drake, stepped on the flying Batmobile, and looked in the direction of the San Francisco Police Department. Beep, beep. Amid the calls for help one after another, the patrol officers near the Golden Gate Bridge, together with the police, sent by the headquarters, were rushing to the scene at the fastest speed. Just as the patrol officer was about to reach the Golden Gate Bridge, a strange scene suddenly appeared in front of his car. A pure black car flew in. The car had an exaggerated wide body shape, and the gun barrels and various weapons and devices were vaguely visible on both sides. It looked both handsome and frightening. The most important thing was that there was a person standing on the front of the car. The cape was flying, and the half face exposed under the helmet was full of coldness. Batman. The police in the car recognized the star who had just appeared. Who is he holding? Drake. It's Drake from the Life Foundation. The police in the car looked at each other, not understanding what Batman meant. Bang. Then, Batman threw Drake to them. The latter hit the front of the police car hard, almost crushing the hood. At this time, Drake was having difficulty breathing, and was in critical condition. After being thrown like this, his face was in pain, as if he was about to die in the next second. Under the burning flames, not only did Riot die completely, but as Riot's host, he was also severely burned, and most of his face was destroyed. If Riot had not maintained the symbiote form as a shell, to block most of the damage for him, he would have been completely turned into ashes within 3 seconds of the flamethrower being activated. I'll leave him to you to deal with. I hope the San Francisco Police Department will not let me down. After leaving a word, Batman still stood on the Batmobile and floated away with a very cool posture. Following closely behind was a group of citizens who did everything they could to watch the excitement. They chased Batman. Seeing Drake lying on the hood of the police car, a group of people looked at each other, knowing that they could not catch up with Batman. so they simply surrounded the police car. The police got off the car to control the situation and questioned him. A few minutes later, the people from the headquarters arrived, and they finally figured out the situation. This is a big deal. The chief of the San Francisco Police Department gasped. He seemed to be able to see the chaos in San Francisco City Hall. In the crowd, Annie and Ann Lewis, who were originally heading to the Golden Gate Bridge, but followed the crowd to this place, also learned about the incident from other people, and breathed a sigh of relief. They looked at each other and smiled. It's over. The trouble is completely solved. Thanks, Batman. Anton didn't rush back to Annie's house, but first went to the suburbs, took Annie's car from the remote suburbs, and hummed all the way into the city. He was in a very good mood. It was not because of the anticlimactic battle just now. It was his idea to easily deal with the riots and Drake, which was completely in line with his plan. The reason why he was so happy was entirely because of the system prompt. Solve the riots, overthrow the Life Foundation, and reward 8 million justice points. Current justice value 10 million. What does this mean? It means that Anton can exchange Batman's special armor from the system space at any time. Although he could only exchange for a few relatively cheap ones, it was already a huge improvement. Finally, I've gotten rid of the blank suit. Anton sighed in his heart. Whether to exchange for the special armor immediately, or save up for the most expensive one first, he still needed to think carefully. He was not in a hurry and drove back to Annie's house slowly. At this time, Annie and Levis had not returned yet, but Eddie had been waiting in the living room for a long time to welcome his return. Anton, thanks to you. Eddie's face was complicated. He recognized Anton wearing the Batman armor through Venom's reminder. The symbiote recognizes a person, not by face, by sensing smell, sound, and so on. Venom recognized Anton, who had a good impression, almost at a glance. As early as the battle, when Anton quickly arrived at the scene in the form of Batman, Venom gave the answer in Eddie's mind. You're welcome, you deserve it. Anton smiled slightly, and accepted Eddie's thanks calmly. Today at the Golden Gate Bridge, Eddie and Venom were completely suppressed by Drake and Riot, and were almost hammered to the ground, unable to fight back. If he hadn't arrived, the outcome would have been unpredictable. This time, it's not that he took credit, but it really wouldn't have worked without him. To be honest, the level Venom showed today was not as strong as Anton expected. Then he thought again. In the original plot in his memory, Venom had never beaten Riot, and had to rely on his ex-girlfriend's assistance to barely win the battle. That makes sense. Of course, this incident reminded Anton. In the original plot, these protagonists are all children of destiny, that is, they are favored by luck, but now Anton has transformed into a little butterfly, and flapped his wings, and the fate of this world has changed, and everything has become different. Except for those who are particularly hardworking, such as Tony Stark. Anton can't judge others strictly according to the plot in his mind. I sent Drake to the police. He can't turn over. Anton was very sure, even if he wants to turn over, he has to consider whether Osborn is willing to let him do so. Osborn. Eddie did not forget that during his previous escape, not only the Life Foundation attacked him, but also the private soldiers sent by Osborn. His face was solemn. How should I face Osborn? I will help you talk. At present, the Daily Bugle has a certain cooperative relationship with Osborn. I have a say. Anton comforted him. Osborn is not like the Life Foundation. It is difficult to overthrow it. With our strength alone, it is definitely a major project. That is no less than the moon landing in the last century. Therefore, it is best to pretend to be with Norman Osborn first. Understood. Eddie nodded. He was not really worried about the threat of Osborn to himself. First, he now has a symbiote and Venom to help him fight at any time. He is a superhuman. Second, Batman is his boss. Both of them are not ordinary characters. After the incident of the destruction of Drake at the Life Foundation, Oscorp reconsidered the consequences, and would definitely not choose such a rough approach again. The most important thing is that Eddie knows that Oscorp cares about the symbiote. Now that the Life Foundation is in turmoil, Oscorp has always wanted to take over the Life Foundation. This is a great opportunity. At that time, after Oscorp obtains the symbiote, its interest in him as a host will surely decrease a lot. In addition, with the Daily Bugle represented by Anton, It is natural to give up the action against him. Based on Eddie's understanding of Oscorp, Norman Osborn is not the same kind of person as Drake. At least, the former does not have such a strong pursuit of aliens. Soon, Annie and Lewis went home. There was another round of greetings. Okay, let's not talk about business today. Let's have a good time. Anton slammed the table and said the 3 words that everyone likes to hear. I'll treat you. When they were at ease in a nightclub in San Francisco until the early morning and finally woke up in the hotel. Bang bang bang. Everyone was woken up by knocking on the door. Different people stood at the door of each room, all dressed in suits and leather shoes, with serious expressions. Hello, Anton. The slightly bald man introduced himself with a smile. I'm Phil Coulson from the Strategic Defense Attack and Logistics Support Agency. Our department is a special force of the International Security Council that is specially used to deal with various strange incidents. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 35 Sincerity. Phil Coulson. Anton was stunned, staring at the slightly bald man in front of him, thinking in his heart, although they don't look alike, they are both bald. Maybe men who love to laugh have the same weaknesses. Coulson felt a little uncomfortable being stared at, always feeling that the boy in front of him had unfriendly eyes and was always looking at his pain points. I came here because of what happened yesterday. Coulson ignored Anton's unfriendly eyes and remained gentle. He said bluntly, please come with me. I want to talk to you on behalf of the Strategic Homeland Defense Attack and Logistics Support Agency. How to talk? Anton crossed his arms and said frivolously. Your companions are waiting for you in the conference room. Coulson said. Then let's go. Anton raised his eyebrows and motioned Coulson to lead the way. Hotel conference room. Eddie, Annie and Levis arrived first and sat at the conference table under the watchful eyes of the security agency, or SHIELD personnel. Eddie looked carefully and was surprised. He didn't need Venom to remind him that this group of people had undergone special training, and their every move had an indescribable temperament. Thinking of their self-introduction, the Strategic National Defense Attack and Logistics Support Agency, an official department. Most likely because of the battle that took place at the Golden Gate Bridge yesterday. 2 monsters fighting each other, and Batman joined the battle. If such a sensational incident can't alarm the special department, do you really think that the Americans keep these people in their own country to eat dry food? Anton. A few minutes later, they saw Anton, who was sleepy, slowly followed a man in. Tell me, Coulson, what do you want to do? Anton nodded to Eddie and others, signaling them to calm down, and then pulled out a chair and sat down, with the momentum of turning the tables. Hello, I'm Phil Coulson from the Strategic Homeland Defense Attack and Logistics Support Agency, and I'm the person in charge of this conversation. Coulson introduced himself to Eddie and the others, and then said, we know the whole story of what happened yesterday. Carlton Drake is guilty of heinous crimes, and we will impose the most severe punishment on him. He will never leave prison again in his life. You don't need to emphasize this point. Whether you are there or not, Drake will be in prison for the rest of his life. Anton was quite sure, and said with a smile, the relevant departments always show up after the fact. You came to us today. Are you going to ask us about the symbiote? You should go to the staff of the Life Foundation experimental base for this matter. There is a reason for this. After all, among the people present is the only symbiote host in the world. Coulson was not angry, even though he was confronted. He looked at Eddie and Anton and said, besides that, our security bureau hopes to strengthen contact with the two of you. Strengthen contact? Eddie was stunned and looked at Coulson. What do you mean? This world is not as peaceful and stable as you two imagine, and our Strategic Homeland Defense Attack and Logistics Support Agency has made great contributions to this. Coulson said, perhaps you two will think that we showed up too late, but in fact this is more like a test. A test on me and Eddie? Anton asked. Yes, you passed the test. Therefore, we hope that you two can become special consultants to the security agency to assist us in resolving related incidents. Coulson said, for this reason, we will be responsible for the final work of this incident, including dealing with future troubles. If we don't agree, you are not going to deal with it? Anton asked. No, we will still do so. Coulson kept smiling and said politely, at any time, the door of the security bureau is always open to you two. Anton said, I would rather see your sincerity before you say this. In fact, we have shown our sincerity. Coulson said, Oscorp asked me to apologize to Mr. Bullock and promise not to harass Mr. Bullock again. Regarding the shares of the Life Foundation, Norman Osborn promised to transfer 10% to the Jameson family. After that, he took out a check and handed it to Eddie. Mr. Bullock, this is also part of Oscorp's apology. Eddie took it and looked at it. He was dizzy by the string of zeros. 10 million. This is just an apology. Eddie knows better what 10% of the shares of the Life Foundation means. A deal worth billions was given to the Jameson family behind Anton. Oscorp is indeed Rick. It does look very sincere. Anton was also a little surprised. He touched his chin and declined politely. Okay, I will carefully consider the invitation from the Security Bureau with Eddie. SHIELD seems powerful, but it is actually a shit pit with a lot of troubles. Anton's brain has neither been pinched by a door nor kicked by a donkey. How could he take the initiative to jump into the pit? At least, before the Hydra problem is solved, SHIELD is not a good place at all. Now, the best we can do is to keep in touch with each other, as Coulson subconsciously said. Then don't bother me. Coulson understood this sentence, smiled slightly, left him a contact number, and waved goodbye. If you need it in the future, you can contact me at any time. No problem. Anton nodded. By the way, before Coulson left, he looked at Ann and Lewis, who had been watching, and said politely, Ms. Wei-Ying and Mr. Lewis, here is a confidentiality agreement that you need to sign. Ann and Lewis looked at each other, thinking that they had nothing to do, and agreed happily at this time. A few minutes later, Coulson and his team all left. Anton and his team sat in the conference room. Eddie stroked the check repeatedly, his mouth almost stretched out, and he couldn't close his mouth. He never thought that the biggest pot of gold he had earned in his life was actually obtained by extortion and claiming compensation. Stop laughing. Anton rolled his eyes. Now that everything is settled, you should also consider when to return to normal life. What? Eddie was confused. I'm a multimillionaire. Why do I have to go to work? Anton looked unkindly. I've left you the position of editor-in-chief of the Daily Bugle. You don't want to leave me and work alone, do you? Is it not too much to take a few days off? Eddie asked tentatively. 3 days. Anton said firmly. After 3 days, report back to New York honestly. No problem. Although Eddie felt that the time was a bit short, he still agreed. The experience of these days seemed to have exposed him to a new world. Returning to normal life could provide him with a buffer, so as to avoid excessive pressure and rapid relaxation and mental breakdown. After a pause, he thought of the man from the relevant department just now, named Phil Coulson. Phil. Eddie pondered for a while, looked at Anton, and hesitated. Did we forget someone? An apartment somewhere in San Francisco. Philuric was watching the video about the monster war on the Golden Gate Bridge on the internet with great excitement, jumping on the floor with joy. Since the news came out, he has sent email messages to Anton and Eddie. Neither of them replied. Phil didn't take it to heart, just thinking that the two were busy dealing with troubles, and didn't know that his two bosses had a night of partying in the nightclub, and didn't remember that they had a subordinate alone in an empty room in San Francisco. Thank you for the reward from the Summit of the Native God. Keep asking for collections and recommendation votes! Exclamation mark. The people in the recommended position at the same time are so powerful. 2LV5, 1LV4, 2LV3, and I'm a little newbie mixed in. Give the child a little help, everyone. Chapter 36, Identity Exposed. Damn airline. The conscienceless Anton and Eddie finally remembered Philuric, who had the same name as Phil Coulson. They said hello to Annie and Levis, left the hotel, and contacted the forgotten Phil. Boss, editor-in-chief, you are so awesome. Phil Urich was extremely excited when he saw the two of them. Your video has been spread all over the internet. There are screenshots of the two of you everywhere. Especially the part where you jumped down from the sky chariot to save people, which has been considered by countless people as the craziest scene of the year. That video blogger must have made a lot of money from this video. What? Anton looked at Phil in surprise and lied with his eyes open. What are you talking about? What did I jump down from the sky chariot? You got it wrong. Impossible, boss. You are Batman. You can't hide it from me. As an insider who has been lurking in San Francisco for so long, and who has been in two-way contact with Anton and Eddie from time to time, Phil has long seen that Anton is not an ordinary person, and his expectations of Anton are very high. In fact, to a certain extent, he is the one who knows Anton best after Anton travels through time. As an insider, Phil was able to distinguish the truth from the lies of the rumors circulating on the internet. With his extraordinary intuition, he was certain that Anton was Batman. Don't say these things carelessly, it will mislead everyone. Anton refuted lightly without any persuasiveness, patted Phil on the shoulder, and said with a smile, Phil, you also played a role in the successful defeat of the Life Foundation this time. When you go back, you will be Eddie's assistant. At the same time, this bonus will make you count the money until your hands are tired. Thank you, boss. Phil was overjoyed, and then cautiously said, boss, don't worry, I won't say anything about Batman casually, but can you sign for me? Just sign the words Batman. Bruce Wayne is also fine. I'm your, no, Batman superfan. Anton was helpless. Also, one of the two monsters fighting on the Golden Gate Bridge yesterday was Carl Tendrake, and the other one. Phil swallowed his saliva, always feeling that he had missed a lot of things. He looked at Eddie, editor-in-chief. That monster is you, isn't it? It's not called a monster, it has a name. Eddie didn't like it, no matter how he heard it. He originally wanted to give Phil some bonus from his 10 million, but now this idea disappeared without a trace. He introduced, it's called Venom. It's an alien creature. You can also call it a symbiote. I have to say, your shape is a bit strange. How to say it? It's like God created a human, accidentally sneezed and overexerted. The chatterbox Phil couldn't control himself, but he thought he said it very tactfully. Eddie's mouth twitched. I don't like him. Venom's voice resounded in his mind. He actually said I'm ugly, I want to eat this guy. He must be the bad guy you introduced in our previous 3 rules. No, he's just a bad mouth. Eddie gritted his teeth and lowered his voice. Editor-in-chief, what are you talking about? Phil looked at Eddie curiously. I'm talking to the monster you mentioned. It's parasitic in my body right now. Eddie said sinisterly, you just said he was ugly, and it angered him. He said he wanted to eat you. Ah. Phil was so scared that his face turned pale. He quickly explained, no, I didn't say he was ugly. I just thought he was too unrefined. Yes, unrefined. Eddie was speechless. Doesn't this still mean he's ugly? Okay, I have things to deal with when I return to New York. I won't talk anymore. Eddie, do you want to go back with me? Anton interrupted them. No, I plan to stay for another 2 days. Eddie shook his head. Hearing this, Anton immediately thought of Annie, then thought of Levis, and felt that the color of Levis's head became greener. Finally, he looked at Phil. Phil didn't really want to go back to New York right away. He wanted to catch up with Eddie, but when he thought of the monster in Eddie's body, he shuddered and said firmly, boss, of course I'm going with you. Anton nodded and said goodbye to Eddie. I'll wait for you in New York. Okay. Eddie watched the two of them leave. Boss, is this your private plane? Phil felt the private plane of a wealthy family for the first time, and his eyes were full of envy and jealousy. Anton had booked a ticket when he came, but in order to make it easier to go back, he asked Jameson to transfer his own plane after arriving in San Francisco. It's so cool. Phil looked happy, and thinking of the bonus he was about to get, he felt that this trip was worth it. Sir, the plane is about to take off. Please fasten your seatbelt. The beautiful stewardess twisted her hips and came over, exuding a fresh fragrance, smiling at Phil. Phil's eyes were straight. Anton had long been accustomed to it, and closed his eyes to rest. A few hours later, the plane arrived in New York, and the two walked out of the airport. At this time, Betty was already waiting outside the airport. "Miss Betty." Seeing this, Phil smiled and said, "Long time no see, Phil." Betty greeted him and looked at Anton. Something happened. What? Anton was stunned and puzzled. What could have happened? About the identity of Batman. Betty hinted, "Now many people think you are Batman, and netizens are almost concluding your identity. How is it possible?" Anton spread his hands. "They have no evidence." Betty's heart moved slightly. Anton said this, but he did not deny his identity as Batman. "Don't forget, you took a plane to San Francisco, and then Batman appeared in San Francisco, and also solved the founder of the Life Foundation, Carlton Drake, who is the mortal enemy of the Daily Bugle." Betty said immediately, "How did netizens know I was in San Francisco?" Anton frowned. "Don't overestimate the principles of the airline." Betty showed a disdainful expression, gloating, "Anyway, you should think about how to face the media's inquiries first." "Shit. Damn airlines." Anton looked ugly. "It's not that Batman's identity cannot be exposed at all. The problem is that he is not Tony Stark, and he is not good at high-profile exposure, let alone high-profile plans. Don't respond to online topics for the time being." Anton thought for a moment and said with a sour face, "I don't want to accept any media interviews now, including the Daily Bugle." "Understood." Betty shrugged. "In addition, Batman's box office has exceeded 400 million, and the overseas box office has reached 200 million, with a global box office of 600 million. Congratulations, genius director. It's not over yet. There is still about half a month of screening cycle." Anton finally heard a good news and smiled. "My goal is 1 billion worldwide. By the way, Jim couldn't find you recently, and he asked me to tell you that he wants to hold a party to celebrate the global box office of Batman Begins exceeding 600 million. Betty said again, "I think this is an opportunity to announce that the Jameson family has officially entered the entertainment industry." "That makes sense." Anton replied, "Reply to Jim for me and say that I agree." Chapter 37. Winston arrives. "Have you finished what I asked you to do?" After the car had been driving smoothly for more than 10 minutes, Anton suddenly broke the silence in the car and asked, "According to your request, DC, Detective Comics, has been officially established and will get the approval procedures tomorrow?" Betty nodded. On the night when Anton booked a flight to San Francisco, Anton asked Betty if she was willing to change jobs. The latter was a little hesitant at first, but soon thought clearly and had a clear mind. Before Anton left, she took the initiative to find Anton and agreed to become Anton's personal assistant. Now, as a talented director sought after by Hollywood, with a family background that is eye-catching enough, Anton has become one of the most famous rich kids in the United States, and his popularity is only lower than Tony Stark before the accident. Not to mention that the two are still friends. Tony Stark has disappeared for almost a week after the accident, and the news has been a hot topic, but people's attention to Tony Stark is getting less and less. After all, this guy's already a dead man in the eyes of many people. He disappeared in a place like Afghanistan, where artillery fire was raging. Unknown life or death is just some people's fantasy of a happy ending. Most people know that Tony Stark has probably been killed. Think of Tony's good friend Anton Jameson, who is not only a genius director and the boss behind the Daily Bugle, but is more likely to be the superhero Batman who was worshipped shortly after his debut. Most people are more concerned about Anton Jameson than they are about Tony Stark's experience. From a dark perspective, Anton stepped on Tony to get to the top. However, what everyone does not know is that only Anton's confidence that Tony is fine will not change from beginning to end. If Tony Stark dies, the world will lose at least half of its color. Let's get back to the point. On the way back to the Daily Bugle from the airport, Betty continued to report on her work, saying, "The head of the screenwriting department is Browning Toby. He had a pleasant cooperation with you before and readily accepted our invitation. As for Jim, he said he would consider it. The movie is only one aspect of our layout." Anton nodded with satisfaction, and with a capitalist style, he ordered, "Regarding comics, animation, and peripherals, etc., arrangements must be made as soon as possible." "I know," Betty replied. "When will Browning arrive in New York?" I still have a lot to discuss with him. Anton asked, by the way, have you poached the assistant directors I told you about? 3 people accepted our invitation, and the others refused. Betty said. 3 people. Anton touched his chin, and did not blame him too much. Forget it, you have done a good job in such a short time. During the question and answer, the car stopped at the roadside of the building, where the Daily Bugle is located. Anton and others got off the car. Back at the Daily Bugle, Phil put down his luggage and went to the finance office to get the salary slip approved by Anton and received a huge bonus. Phil then went home with his luggage in excitement. Anton also gave him a day off, asking him to come back to work after Reddy arrived. Sitting on a chair at the Daily Bugle, Anton made himself a cup of coffee, took a sip, and let out a long sigh. The day finally became comfortable. Knock, knock, knock. But just before the end of the get off work day, Betty knocked on the door with a slightly strange look on her face and said to him, someone knows you're back and he wants to see you. Anton asked, who? Betty said, Winston from the Continental Hotel. Let him in. Anton nodded and then saw Winston push the door open, his face gentle, without any trace of the impotent rage that night. Anton, should I say first meeting? Winston looked at the young man in front of him with a smile, and his vigilance was raised to the highest level. This kid is not a simple person. That night, Anton's threat to him in the form of Batman was like a demon from hell, which he would never forget. What's the matter? In front of Winston, Anton was too lazy to pretend. They knew each other well. He smiled with interest and said, I thought you didn't want to see me again in this life. There is an adjudicator who wants to see you. Winston said frankly, you have to give an explanation about the Continental Hotel, don't you? The adjudicator? Anton smiled and said, let her in. Winston said, well, in fact, she hopes you can go see her at the Continental Hotel. I don't belong to the high table, and I haven't offended the high table. Anton's face suddenly darkened. He looked at Winston coldly, revealing a dangerous aura, and slowly said, on the contrary, it was the high table that offended me. Go back and tell the adjudicator that, if she wants to see me, let her come to the Daily Bugle. In addition, if the high table wants to deal with me, she is welcome at any time. I will tell her everything you said. Winston was not angry either. It seemed that he didn't have a good impression of the adjudicator. After speaking slowly, he turned and left. Then, until the end of the working day, Anton did not see the adjudicator of the high table. He was too lazy to care about so much. Anyway, he never took the high table organization to heart. Simply put, the high table is a global killer empire, where rules are supreme, and all killers affiliated with the high table must abide by the rules of the high table. But despite this, in this world, the high table has not unified the killer world. There are still various killer organizations standing in between. Just like a sect, competing with each other. According to Anton's understanding, the high table has 12 seats, and the elders of the seats are the Kimura, the Mafia, the Glory Society, the Chinese, and the Russians. The controllers are distributed all over the world, and it is quite troublesome to deal with them. The Continental Hotel is just a New York stronghold under the high table, far from being a nest. This is why Anton did not stare at the high table behind the Continental Hotel, after dealing with the Continental Hotel, or even uproot it. If the high table knows what's interesting, it will naturally not easily provoke him as a powerful enemy. After all, it was not him who made the mistake first. On the other side, in the post-disaster reconstruction Continental Hotel, a short-haired woman with a stern temperament looked at Winston, who was smiling maliciously in front of her, with a blank expression. Did he say that? Yes. Winston nodded. It is very important that he asked you to see him, not him to see you. After all, in his opinion, we are the ones who made the mistake first. We. The judge took a deep look at Winston. As the owner of the Continental Hotel, it was natural for Winston to refer to himself and the high table as we. But this sentence here represents that Winston is unwilling to be the one who takes the lead. In other words, Winston's fear of Anton has reached an extremely deep level. Is a Batman who suddenly appeared so terrifying? When are you going to see him? Winston saw that the judge was lost in thought and suddenly asked, I will go to see him. The judge glanced at Winston and replied lightly, but not now. Chapter 38 The High Table's Request. The next day, When Anton was at work, he saw a group of colleagues blocking the door of the Daily Bugle. He was shocked at first, and then his head hurt. "Mr. Anton, do you admit what is said on the internet? Are you Batman?" Batman's global box office has exceeded 600 million, and a real Batman also appeared in the Continental Hotel incident in New York not long ago. Is there a connection between you? A group of reporters surrounded Anton, who had just got off the car, asking questions like a machine gun, as if they would not let him go until they were exhausted. "Everyone, Batman is just a coincidence." Anton really had no choice but to stop and smile bitterly at the screens facing him. "Bruce Wayne is just a character I created. There is no such person in reality. As for why there is a Batman in reality, I can only think that he agrees with all my ideas about Batman." Then how do you explain that the killers killed by Batman in the Continental Hotel were actually here to deal with you and the Daily Bugle? These reporters are not afraid of your denial, but they are afraid that you will not speak. As long as you speak, everything is easy to say. Also, why did Batman appear in San Francisco when you just arrived there and personally sent Carl Tendrake, the founder of the Life Foundation, to the police? "Mr. Anton, can you explain it?" the reporters asked. "It's just a coincidence." Anton spread his hands. "No matter how you explain it, it's hard to explain coincidence." After saying this, he stopped answering any questions until he walked into the Daily Bugle building, completely isolating himself from the reporters' questions. Inside the Daily Bugle, Betty saw Anton sweating in order to deal with the reporters and couldn't help but laugh at him. "Anton, this is the most embarrassed I've ever seen you. If you can get me a cup of coffee, I'd be very grateful to you." Anton glanced at her and thought of the reporters at the door. He had a headache. He found that he had underestimated Batman's influence. At present, Batman's fan value in the system space has exceeded 14 million. This is an astonishing number. Don't forget that he had previously spent 9.98 million to buy Batman's main template. If these 14 million fans were converted into templates of other heroes, perhaps the goal of another vest would not be far away. And these 14 million fans are not useless. At least, when he transforms into Batman and fights other opponents, both the armor and equipment will be damaged. At that time, the fans will be useful again. Of course, at present, 14 million is enough, not to mention that this number is still increasing. Although I have long expected that Batman's identity will become a well-known secret, I didn't expect that this day will come so soon. Anton rubbed his temples and pondered for a moment. Although the public opinion on the internet generally believes that the possibility of him being Batman is as high as 80%, there are still some people who will never believe that he is Batman. The best way to deny a fact is to cut off the connection between the facts. The biggest evidence of supporters at the moment is that Batman and the Daily Bugle are too closely connected. Secondly, wherever he appears, Batman appears. These two facts give people room for imagination and reasoning. To cut off the facts, the former is easy to do, and you can just keep denying and blame it on coincidence. The latter requires some effort. Anton suddenly had an idea. He suddenly thought that Jim would hold a party in Los Angeles in a few days, and he would definitely appear under the media's attention at that time. As long as Batman showed up at the same time, he could directly cut off the fixed connection between him and Batman. That is, he would naturally disassociate with Batman. But to achieve this effect, he needs to use a prop or a special armor. With his current justice value, he can just buy this special armor. Touching his chin, Anton made up his mind. It is necessary to do this. Like Tony Stark, it is not in Anton's character to say that he is Iron Man. Anton would rather hide behind the scenes temporarily. The reason why it is temporary is that with the great development of the DC company he just founded, as the helmsman of DC company, the more DC heroes appear, the more he can't hide, just like a firefly in the Dark Knight. But at least before he is ready, Anton does not intend to expose himself to the public. The identity of Batman, temporarily maintaining a small circle, is the best way to avoid trouble. After all, Anton thought he was not afraid of anything except trouble. It was time to get off work. Anton first asked Betty to see if there were any reporters at the door, and then he left the office building carefully, fearing that he would be surrounded by reporters again. Some people say that reporters are the only creatures in the world that are more annoying than flies. At this time, Anton had a deep understanding. Soon, when he opened the door of the car driven by the driver and saw the short-haired woman in the car, he was stunned at first and then sat in the back seat calmly, side by side with the short-haired woman. "Someone from the high table?" he asked. "Yes, I'm the judge of the high table." The short-haired woman introduced herself. "Elsa Kate, you can call me Elsa." Anton's tone was calm, but revealed a hint of impatience. "I hope we can make things clear in the shortest time." "Of course," Elsa said. "Regarding the assassination, I apologize to you in the name of the high table. I thought you were going to make trouble for me. It seems that those people at the high table are not fools." Anton raised his eyebrows. Although he vaguely guessed the ending, he was still satisfied with the attitude shown by the high table. This at least showed that he did not bring shame to the name of Batman. Elsa did not respond to his words, but changed the subject and said, "Today, in addition to expressing our apologies, we come to see you mainly for a request." "Request?" Anton said lightly. "If it is an unreasonable request, then you can shut up now and leave my car." Elsa explained, "Rather than a request, it is better to say it is a request, or cooperation." "What request? How to cooperate?" Anton frowned slightly. At present, it seems that the high table seems to be a little too compromising. Although the high table is not taken seriously by him, it is at least the world's top assassin organization, with considerable power in its hands, and it is also a top force in the underground world. In Elsa's mouth, she can actually use the word request, which is obviously not simple. "We want you to kill someone," Elsa said. "Who?" Anton was surprised. The high table itself is a top assassin organization. Even you can't kill someone. How do you think I can do it? Chapter 39 Brotherhood. "This is the only request of the high table," Aisha said seriously. "As for the target of the mission, I can only tell you, after you accept this mission. In this world, there are many people that the high table can kill, and there are indeed a few people who cannot be killed. However, it is these few who have the ability to mobilize most of the world's resources." Anton narrowed his eyes and said lightly, "Since this is a cooperation, what can I get?" "The friendship of the high table and the status of the high table consultant," Aisha said. "The high table consultant has the power to mobilize the assassins within the high table. You can share all intelligence with the high table. Of course, corresponding to this, you must also bear the corresponding responsibilities and sign a blood contract with the high table. Once the blood contract is signed, it cannot be violated. Otherwise, you will be hunted down by the high table endlessly." Anton completely understood that this was to win him over. It seems that the powerful ability of Batman that he showed made the high table see the value. Blood contract is impossible. Killing is even more impossible. Anton flatly refused. "If you have seen Batman's movie, you know that Batman has a principle not to kill." Aisha heard this. Her face was complicated. She thought that she would be rejected by Anton, but she didn't expect that she would be rejected for such a reason. Not killing people. That's ridiculous. But on second thought, no one died in the battle that night from beginning to end. After reviewing the situation, only 2 unlucky guys were hit by stray bullets and died of excessive blood loss. At most, they died indirectly at the hands of Anton, and it can't be said that Anton killed them. That day, among the killers facing Anton, the one in the worst condition is now a vegetable. But it's not impossible to ask Batman for help. Seeing Aisha's face change, Anton suddenly spoke again. "But, it must be done in Batman's way." After a pause, he said, "Secondly, Batman can establish a cooperative relationship with the high table, but it is limited to cooperation in intelligence. If there are other demands in the future, it will be another cooperation matter. About this, we can talk slowly." It just so happened that he needed a stage to perform to wash away the suspicion that he was Batman, and it was not a bad idea to cooperate with the high table. "I can't make the decision." Aisha pondered for a long time and said to Anton, "Please give me some time." She got out of the car and took out her cell phone. She talked to the other end of the phone for a long time. Finally, she returned to the car and nodded to Anton. "Happy cooperation. In that case, can you now tell me who you want to kill?" Anton asked with interest. He was really curious about who the person was that even the High Table couldn't kill. His name is Sloan, and he is the leader of another assassin organization, the Brotherhood. Aisha said. He is also the High Table's biggest competitor in the assassin world. Sloan. Brotherhood. Competitor? It seems a bit confusing. Anton was stunned. Brotherhood. Sloan. That stupid organization that controls fate in the name of weaving? Yes. Aisha was not surprised that Anton knew about the Brotherhood. She said, Sloan is the leader of the Brotherhood. He is very powerful and has many top killers under his command. He has never failed in the international arena and is the main competitor of the High Table. In the past 10 years, there have been many direct competitions between the High Table and the Brotherhood. The relationship between the two sides is like fire and water. Not only do we want to kill him, but he also wants to exterminate us. In other words, everyone wants to be the leader of the assassin world. When two tigers fight, as long as they kill each other, the remaining one will naturally become the best in the industry. The person that the assassin organization cannot kill will naturally become the boss of another assassin organization. This is also reasonable. Anton suddenly realized. He nodded to Aisha. Send the information to me as soon as possible, and I will arrange a time to start. No problem, we have already sorted out the information. Aisha nodded. If you need it in the future, you can find the High Table through me or Winston. You will be our guest in the future. After that, she handed Anton a tablet-like handheld computer and got out of the car. Watching Aisha disappear on the street, Anton told the driver to drive, then turned on the account computer in his hand and opened the information inside. After reading the information, he finally understood why the High Table would find him at this time. The grudge between the High Table and the Brotherhood has a long history. At first, the Brotherhood was a principled assassin organization. They only killed the mission targets established by themselves, and they did not compete with the High Table. But about 20 years ago, changes occurred within the Brotherhood. After Sloan took office, the Brotherhood developed rapidly and had already strongly threatened the position of the High Table in the assassin world. Therefore, the High Table wanted to kill Sloan and let everyone in the assassin world know that the High Table was the imperial organization that would prosper in the assassin world. The reason why they approached Anton at this time was not only that they were not absolutely sure of killing Sloan, but also because the strongest assassin in the Brotherhood, Carlos, appeared in New York. Carlos was the ace assassin of the Brotherhood and mastered unimaginable gunfighting skills. But a few years ago, Carlos suddenly left the Brotherhood, and the Brotherhood represented by Sloan seemed to have broken with Carlos and set him as an assassination target. The two sides launched a long tug-of-war, and neither side could do anything to the other. The Brotherhood suffered heavy losses, and Carlos was unscathed. Until the High Table received intelligence. Carlos will appear in New York in the near future, and the Brotherhood will send out all its members this time to continue to assassinate Carlos. This will be a decisive battle, and Sloan will definitely show up. This is the best opportunity for the High Table to take action. Since there is no guarantee of success, it is better to leave it to someone who is sure to do it, that is, Batman. Even if Batman can't do it, then just maintain the status quo, and there is no loss for himself. The elders on the seats of the High Table are not idiots. They have taken everything into account. The decisive battle? Anton touched his chin. According to his memory of his previous life, there was no such plot in the wanted order. The most logical assumption is that in this decisive battle, both sides are in a stalemate, where neither can do anything to the other. That is why Sloan had no choice but to find Carlos' son, Wesley, and use this loser to deal with his father Carlos. Tomorrow, Fox, the repairman, and other top assassins of the Brotherhood will come to New York. Anton turned off his PDA and closed his eyes to think. Time is a bit tight. Then he took out his phone and called Jim. Anton. Jim answered immediately, his voice excited. I'm going to hold a celebration party the day after tomorrow. You promised me that you would come, right? Of course I will come, but not the day after tomorrow. Anton ordered, move the party to tomorrow night. I'll take a plane to Los Angeles tonight. What? This broke Jim's idea, and he said angrily, tomorrow? What are you doing? I have already sent out the party invitations. Do you think those Hollywood people are free every day? It's up to them whether they come or not. Anyway, I'm going to hold this party tomorrow. Anton didn't care who would come to the party. He just wanted a legitimate and eye-catching appearance. After saying that, he hung up the phone. Shit. Jim heard the busy tone on the phone and couldn't help cursing a classic line, but he couldn't do anything about Anton. He knew what the result would be when Anton was willful. He had a clear understanding of this when Anton was a director and led the crew to shoot. Anton was as willful as Tony Stark, and they both had a bad temper. The only thing that is better than Tony Stark is that he is not so tricky in dealing with people, and he basically never stands anyone up. I will change the update time after today, and it will be based on this time, before it is put on the shelves, 2 PM and 8 PM. If I don't post it on time, it means that I will lose all the manuscripts in my inventory. Finally, please recommend. Please collect. Please support. By the way, if there are typos, you can leave a message in the chapter description, and I will correct them as soon as I see them. In fact, I will modify the sentences and check them before uploading, but there are still omissions. Please forgive me. Chapter 40. The party begins. The third party in the dark. In the early morning of the next day, Anton arrived in Los Angeles. Los Angeles is where Hollywood is located. It is a gathering place for celebrities, and reporters are much crazier than their counterparts in New York. A group of people holding cameras squatted at the airport exit without any concealment, waiting for Anton to come out. With their connections, as long as Anton gets on the plane, they know Anton's next destination. Even private planes are no exception. There will always be people who are bribed by them. At present, not only ordinary exits, but also VIP exits are guarded. Anton doesn't know how these reporters got in. There are spies at every exit. Los Angeles reporters can be said to be the king of intelligence in Los Angeles. Whether on the ground or underground, from all kinds of gossip to international events, reporters can be seen everywhere. Go back and fire everyone on the plane and replace them with a new batch. Anton looked ugly. After standing still, he looked around and saw a bunch of reporters at the door looking eagerly, which gave him a headache. He knew that it must be the employees on the private plane who leaked his information. Understood. Betty nodded. Do you need me to call the airport security over? Call them over. Anton sighed. He really had no way to deal with these reporters, and he himself lacked experience in dealing with reporters. As the behind-the-scenes boss of the Daily Bugle, he knew better than anyone that, if he answered anything here, he might become the headline of a newspaper the next day. Don't doubt it, he is so well known now. A few minutes later, surrounded by a group of security guards, Anton got in the car and left, leaving no room for the reporters. During this process, a group of reporter friends who were madly squeezing forward put their cameras in Anton's face, as if they didn't need to ask anything. A group of people chased Anton's car and came to a mansion near Los Angeles. What is he doing here? A reporter was surprised. Party. Another person answered. Jim moved the celebration party forward to 8 o'clock tonight, and Anton came to Los Angeles just to attend this party. What? The man was surprised. Shouldn't the party be tomorrow? It's one day earlier, and you didn't know that? You'd better quit your job and go home to take care of your children. This line of work is not suitable for you. His colleagues looked down on him, as if they were looking at a waste. Time quickly passed from early morning to evening. After getting enough rest, Anton drove to the party venue in high spirits. The female companion in the co-pilot seat was his personal assistant Betty. Seeing this, the reporter followed him again. At the same time, New York. Under Sloan's instructions, members of the Brotherhood appeared near the Empire State Building. There were Foxfire Fox, the repairman, the gunsmith, Mr. X, the pesticide, the butcher and others. Almost all the members of the internal organization were dispatched to deal with Carlos. They are the top killers in the world. The reason why all the members were dispatched is because they know how difficult Carlos is to deal with. Carlos, who was once a companion, was a legendary figure in the Brotherhood who never failed and was admired by countless peers. His terrifying gunfighting skills frightened the members of the Brotherhood. Even the assassins under the high table thought that Carlos was one of the most difficult people to kill in the world. He was ranked above Sloan. To be honest, although John Wick was called the king of killers in New York, If we really compare, he would definitely not be able to deal with Carlos, and at most he would be comparable to Firefox and others. After all, if John Wick could kill Carlos, the High Table would not be so afraid of the Brotherhood. But what these Brotherhood members didn't know was that their actions were being watched by a pair of flashing red eyes from beginning to end. Whoosh. In the dark night, the extremely tall figure was hidden, with two long and pointed ears on his head, which looked like an anthropomorphic rabbit. Los Angeles, party time. One after another, big names arrived at the party venue to attend the celebration of the global box office of Batman Begins exceeding 600 million. Reporters pressed the shutter again and again. The flashlights added a touch of extravagance to the party. Of course, the reporters were stopped outside the door, and at most they could take photos through the door, looking eager. A very small number of female reporters took the arms of the big shots and walked into the party venue with a proud look, attracting the envious and jealous eyes of countless male reporters. Anton, as one of the protagonists of this party, stood at the door and greeted these big shots. Some were familiar, some were unfamiliar. At this moment, everyone was like an old friend who had not seen each other for many years. Next to Anton was Jim Lambert, who returned to the ranks of first-line producers with Batman Begins. Jim was in high spirits at this time, sweeping away the decadence of previous years. Batman Part 2, when are you going to shoot it? Seeing that most of the guests had arrived, Jim finally took some time off and talked to Anton, who had not seen him for many days. It's already in the plan. Anton replied, in addition to Batman, I currently have some other plans that are ready to be carried out simultaneously. Jim, what do you think about what I asked Betty to ask you? You mean joining your newly established DC company? Jim hesitated. This matter is related to my future career plan. You have to give me more time to think about it. No problem, but I don't have much patience. Anton said lightly, you know, you are not the only producer in Hollywood. Everyone is very attentive. Jim's face changed slightly, and he said seriously, I know, I will give you an answer as soon as possible. Okay, let's go in. Anton changed the subject. Everyone who should be here is here. It's time to proceed with the next activity. After speaking, he walked towards the crowd. Jim pondered for a long time, looked at Anton in the crowd, smiled slightly, and then followed. Another 10 minutes passed. Anton's eyes flashed. At this time, if someone observed his pupils, they would find that he seemed to see another picture. This picture does not belong to this party, but a deep darkness. New York, Empire State Building. Carlos disguised himself as a cleaner and shuttled between the corridors. In this decisive battle, it would be better to say that he deliberately exposed his position, rather than saying that the Brotherhood discovered his traces in order to deal a heavy blow to the Brotherhood's top killers with perfect preparations. Years of hunting and killing made him tired of this kind of life. He was ready to kill the Brotherhood's masters at once. Either he died, or his opponent died. Click. Suddenly, all the lights inside the Empire State Building went out, and the power was cut off. However, power outages were common at this time of night, and no one else noticed it. Only Carlos raised his eyebrows. It seems that the Brotherhood has entered the Empire State Building. As for the Brotherhood, when they saw all the lights above their heads go out, they also felt moved, and thought that this was Carlos's work. Neither side knew that a third party had appeared in this decisive battle. And this third party was spying on everyone in the dark. Yesterday, a friend posted a comment on chapter 39, saying that the protagonist was a bit off, so I changed a line of dialogue, and then the comment disappeared. It might have been swallowed. I want to emphasize that I have not deleted anyone's comments or chapters so far. Those that advertise or post group numbers do not count. As long as they are not very unpleasant, I will accept them calmly. That's all. Chapter 41. Prepare to feel the pain. This third party who was spying in the dark was undoubtedly Anton, who was far away in Los Angeles and was controlling the special armor remotely. The GCPD mechanical bat armor, also known as the rabbit armor. Because the two ears on the head retain some bat features, but are more like rabbit ears, it is called the rabbit armor. In addition, this set of armor has two huge macro cannon launchers on the shoulders, and the structure of the whole body is more like a small mecha, rather than an extended skeleton-like armor. In terms of appearance, there is a huge difference compared with the basic Batman armor exchanged by Anton. However, Anton knows that the more special armors he exchanges, the more obvious the difference between the basic armor and the special armor will be. It is worth mentioning that the rabbit armor does not belong to the Batman armors that are well known to the public, because it does not actually belong to Bruce Wayne, but to James Gordon, the good friend and good partner of Batman known to the public, Sheriff Gordon. This is a story that happened in the New 52 Time and Space, which was led by the famous Flashpoint event. The cause was that the Flash caused time and space fluctuations, causing the world to fall into a devastating war. In order to guide history back on track, he revised the timeline. However, Dr. Manhattan secretly operated behind the scenes so that time and space did not return to their original state, but generated the New 52 Time and Space. After the Endgame event in the late New 52, Bruce Wayne lost his memories of the Batman period in the shadow of his parents' death. He became a happy volunteer and lived a shameless life with his first love. However, Gotham City must have a Batman. Therefore, James Gordon volunteered to become the chosen one. GCPD, that is, the Gotham Police Department, created a set of Batman armor to replace Bruce Wayne's role. The rabbit armor can be driven by a person, and when there is no driver, it can act autonomously or be remotely controlled, becoming a powerful force. System price: 8 million justice points. Anton, who is rich and powerful and has 10 million justice points, bought it without hesitation. At this moment, Anton, who was attending a party in Los Angeles, was doing two things at once, remotely controlling the rabbit armor. After entering the Batman state, Anton had all the skills of Bruce Wayne. It was not difficult for the master to do two things at once. Moreover, Anton, who was far away in Los Angeles, had avoided the crowd and came to the corner of the window to blow the wind to ensure the correct action, looking like he didn't want to be disturbed. The people present were all big guys, and no one was shameless enough to come to him. Swish. Inside the Empire State Building, the rabbit armor walked through the slightly crowded corridor, but its footsteps were almost non-existent. Carlos and the Brotherhood and others didn't realize that a third party appeared in their confrontation. However, Anton didn't actually want to arrest these people. He remembered it. The leader of the Brotherhood, Sloan, was his real target. If you have to count, these people are just extras. But Sloan is very careful. The intelligence of the High Table can only collect the movement trajectory of Fox and others, and can do nothing about Sloan behind the scenes. Therefore, these extras are also useful to Anton. Of course, this is only one of the reasons why Anton appeared here. The more important reason is that Batman must appear in the public eye tonight. This will form a contrast with Anton, who is far away in Los Angeles, thereby cutting off the connection between the two parties and making the public opinion on the internet lean towards the fact that he cannot be Batman. Bang, bang, bang. Suddenly, gunshots rang out. Carlos, who had defected from the Brotherhood, and the active Brotherhood members had already started fighting. Bullets flew across the air. One bullet after another passed through the air at incredible angles. However, Carlos was able to take the lead in determining the landing point of the bullet and fired back while dodging. This was due to the surge of adrenaline, which caused the heart to become an engine and develop the ability of bullet time and bullet turning. In this world, bullet turning, bullet time, ultra long distance sniping, universal adrenaline bursts, and 360-degree shooting without dead angles are all personal abilities that can be achieved with the help of guns, collectively known as gunfighting. Both sides are masters, and they know each other well. No one dares to advance, so they fight and retreat, but always keep a sufficient distance for shooting. Through the vision of the rabbit armor, Anton observed both sides and found that the gunfighting skills of the two gangs have reached an incredible level. To be able to use a weapon to this extent, we have to admit that both sides are talented. Unfortunately, what this world lacks the least is talent. Especially in the killer world, where talented people emerge in large numbers. Kai. Someone in the active members of the Brotherhood was shot. Carlos was unharmed. Fox and others looked ugly, looked at each other, and gritted their teeth. Chase. We can't just let it go. They made up their minds that they must fight Carlos tonight. If so many people can't kill Carlos, then after today, not only will the Brotherhood lose face, but Carlos will also become a high legend in the killer world. This is not what Fox and others want to see. Gunshots continued in the Empire State Building. Beep, beep. Alarms sounded throughout the building. As you can imagine, the police will come soon after receiving the alarm. Carlos, Fox and others can no longer care about so many things. Both of them want to kill each other today. If they miss today, it will be difficult to find a suitable opportunity again. In the dark, Anton, who was controlling the rabbit armor, knew that it was time for him to show up. Whoosh. Controlling the rabbit armor, his body moved, breaking through a wall, raising a cloud of wall dust, blocking Carlos, who was evacuating. Who is it? Carlos was shocked and fired subconsciously. Clang! Exclamation mark. The sound of metal clashing rang out. The bullet had no effect on the giant figure in front of him. For a killer who has mastered the art of gunfighting, once the gun is ineffective, most of his skills will be wasted. Bullets can't even penetrate the shell of someone, so what can bare hands do? Seeing this, Carlos was deeply terrified, and his pupils shrank. Especially after he fired continuously, the bullets cut through the wall dust and the airflow was stirred, and he realized that the person in front of him was not a person. To be precise, it was a steel shell. Carlos didn't know if there was anyone inside, but he estimated that there was a high probability that there was. Who? Carlos' face was full of solemnity, and he almost forgot about the pursuers behind him. Who are you? If you can tell me Sloane's location, I will be happy to answer your questions. Anton's voice came from the voice player of the rabbit armor. Hearing this low electronic voice, Carlos' eyes flashed. If you are looking for trouble with Sloane, I'm happy to help. It seems that you don't know. Anton saw at a glance that Carlos didn't trust him at all. This guy was just stalling for time and trying his best to get out. The rabbit armor raised his hand and punched. The airflow was stirred. The power was so great that it was shocking. Carlos dodged in a hurry, but he didn't expect the huge figure in front of him to take a step forward and knock him away with his size advantage. At this time, the members of the Brotherhood arrived at the scene. Who is it? When they saw Carlos lying on the ground, they did not attack him immediately, but turned their eyes to the rabbit armor in front of them. Wait, are you Batman? Fox frowned, barely able to recognize his identity from the appearance of the rabbit armor. As a person who defeated the Continental Hotel, when he suddenly appeared, Batman's name in the assassin world is much more famous than Hollywood stars, and even comparable to those top assassins who have worked hard for many years. You know, there are not very few people who have the courage to challenge the Continental Hotel alone and easily sweep away all the assassins in it and make the high table suffer. Yes, before Batman, there was no one. Batman is the first. The first one is often the most impressive one. I'm glad you recognized me, Fox Firefox. The deep electronic voice sounded again, and the pair of red mechanical eyes swept over the Brotherhood and others, comparing the information one by one. Anton said again, if you are willing to surrender and tell me Sloane's location, you will suffer less in the future. Dream on. The repairman had a bad attitude. He stared coldly at the tall figure in front of him. Coward who dares not to see people, don't think you can defeat us by hiding in an iron shell. We are not those ordinary guys in the mainland hotel. Okay. The rabbit armor touched his fists, making a crisp clang sound. The iron face that clearly had no emotion seemed to make people feel the changes through the sound, full of regrets. Then be prepared to feel pain. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 40 to Hell's Kitchen. As soon as the voice fell, a huge figure suddenly approached everyone. Fox and others' faces changed wildly, and they felt a gust of wind coming, giving them no time to react. Bang! The rude repairman was bleeding on the spot and fainted on the ground. Carlos wanted to take the opportunity to escape, but was stopped by a sudden shell. Boom! Exclamation mark. The deafening explosion sounded, alarming everyone around the Empire State Building. At this moment, all the ignorant people who were working overtime in the next building shouted in fear, looked at the fire burning in the Empire State Building, swallowed their saliva, and knew that something was wrong. Beep beep! Exclamation mark. The phone of the New York Police Department was about to be blown up again. George Stacy, who was just about to get off work, gritted his teeth. A few days ago, the Continental Hotel had kept him busy for a long time. The group of disabled killers was finally dealt with. He finally felt that he could relax today. Here he comes again. Which bastard is it this time? I'm going to make him pay. Director, there was a fierce gunfight in the Empire State Building, and someone used artillery shells. Someone hurried to report. Artillery shells? George was stunned, then furious. RPG. Which bastard dared to place an RPG in the city? Don't you want to live? The man said, Director, the information cannot be wrong. The telephone operator has been overwhelmed with calls. Shit. George immediately walked out of the office. What are you doing here? Hurry up and get going. After the artillery shell on his shoulder was released. Inside the Empire State Building, including Carlos, everyone was stunned. They never expected that the other party would play so big. This is a heavy weapon level. The rule in the city is that whoever uses heavy weapons is equivalent to tearing his face with the city manager. This unspoken rule is consciously followed by many people. Of course, it is also related to the strict control of heavy weapons by the authorities. There is always a certain tacit understanding between the peace of the underground order and the authorities. This is your last chance. Seeing that everyone in front of him did not dare to move, Anton laughed in a low voice, and his red eyes swept over everyone in the audience again. All of these people were stiff, feeling the terror of Batman. It can be seen that Batman is not a man who follows rules, and he is full of confidence. After a while, the police rushed over. At the entrance of the Empire State Building, a group of killers who were tied together and all their weapons were confiscated, sat on the ground helplessly. Their eyes were filled with fear. Seeing the police car coming, they were unmoved, and their expressions remained wooden. Who are these people? A police officer frowned, feeling that these guys were not good people, but they appeared in the image of victims. They are from the Brotherhood. Ah, another killer? The police officer was stunned, and quickly took out the handcuffs. On the side, George Stacy appeared. It was him who just revealed the identities of these people. He looked at the group of people in front of him, and his head was very painful. Carlos is a legend in the underground killer world. As an ace killer in the Brotherhood, who has never failed, although he betrayed the Brotherhood, his information has been placed on the desks of many people. George had learned from his spies that there would be a fight between the Brotherhoods tonight, and thought it would not affect the police station, but it turned out to be such a big deal. Using heavy weapons in the Empire State Building. This is no small matter. Considering the criminal records of these people, they will at least be in prison for life. George's mind was filled with only these three question marks. Who did this? Who caught these Brotherhood members? Who is the bastard who put the RPG? He didn't know much about the Brotherhood, but he knew a lot about the local enterprises, such as the Continental Hotel under the High Table. You know, the Brotherhood is one level higher than the Continental Hotel, barely equal to the High Table. With this comparison, you can see how shocking it is that these world-class killers from the Brotherhood were all caught. Chief, look, it's Batman. Suddenly, the police officer next to him exclaimed, which made George come back to his senses. Staring at the figure on the top of the Empire State Building, he felt as if he had seen this scene somewhere. He dreamed back to a few days ago. Water fake, it's him again. George stared at the strange shadow above his head with wide eyes, and his breathing became rapid. Swish. The next moment, the figure disappeared from everyone's sight just like before. The police fell into silence, and they all felt that the scene a few days ago was repeating itself. Let's go. George waved his hand and sighed. To be honest, they really couldn't do anything about this Batman who was elusive, and whose identity was unknown. Fortunately, there were no reporters today. George thought of this, and breathed a sigh of relief, feeling a little comforted. If the citizens of New York knew that Batman had appeared again, arrested a group of world-class killers, and resolved the gunfight inside the Empire State Building, the New York Police Department would face another round of ridicule from the media and citizens. As for those who called the police, as long as some gossip was not spread to newspapers and news, the New York Police Department could completely pretend not to see it. George Stacy was no stranger to such things of covering one's ears and stealing the bell. But he didn't know that not far behind them, a man holding a SLR camera was grinning with satisfaction. This photo is good. I'll ask Anton to give me a bonus when I get back. Eddie took a lot of photos of the Empire State Building and the police at the door. Of course, he would not miss the scene of the bunny armor flying over the high-rise building. Looking at the photos in the camera and thinking about tomorrow's newspaper headlines, he stopped and went home with satisfaction. Anton is really a good boss. Knowing that he had just returned to work, he arranged such a good job for him. Not bad. It's a good idea. Eddie left before the police reacted, but he did not go home because Anton had not finished what he had asked. The next destination is the gate of the New York Police Department. On the other side, the bunny armor disappeared in the Empire State Building and came directly to Hell's Kitchen, not far from the Empire State Building. Boom. The bunny armor violently broke into a street in Hell's Kitchen. The arrogant posture attracted a lot of attention. This is Hell's Kitchen. Oh shit. What is that? Hey, this is our territory, not a place for playing house. Whatever you want to do, I advise you to think it over carefully. A group of people rushed out with guns, aimed at the rabbit armor, and pulled the trigger without hesitation. Bang, bang, bang. The bullets were bounced off the hard shell of the rabbit armor. Fire splashed. These people were completely stunned. They haven't seen such a dishonest guy, a tin monster. This is Jin Bing's territory. I advise you to be kind. These people are a little scared, but their background does not allow them to admit their fear. At the same time, there is a secret room inside the building. A white man and a black man are having a cordial conversation. The white man is wearing a tailor-made high-end suit, and his huge body makes him look very fat, but only a few people know that this man is full of muscles, an extremely evil, cunning, and powerful man. The black man looks quite old, but the cunning light flashing in his eyes can also make people know that he is not a guy to be messed with. The two are shaking hands. Welcome to my underground kingdom, brotherhood. Just as the white man finished speaking, the door of the secret room was pushed open, and a bald man with a target tattoo on his forehead walked in. He looked at the two people in the room, ignoring their instantly ugly faces, and said bluntly, "Boss, something happened. Someone broke in. A new week. Give me some recommendation votes. Crab." Chapter 43. Greeting Jinbing. Who? Kingpin's face, which was intimidating without anger, showed a serious expression that could scare a child to tears. He said in a low voice, "Who? Who dares to act wildly in my territory? Is it the night demon who came to my door? No, although his appearance has changed a little, it should be Batman." Bullseye shook his head. "The guy who overturned the Continental Hotel?" Kingpin asked. "Yes." Bullseye nodded and advised, "He is about to break in. It is not safe here now. I think you can evacuate first. Boss, you are a successful businessman now. It is not appropriate to appear here. I'll wait for you in the car." Kingpin said to Bullseye, "Deal with him as soon as possible." "No problem." Bullseye showed a cruel smile. "Let's go, Mr. Sloan." Kingpin turned to the black man beside him and said, "We will wait for good news in the car." "Of course." Sloan smiled and agreed with Kingpin's words. He didn't know at this moment that Batman's appearance was not for Kingpin at all, but for him. On the other side, the rabbit armor has been killing crazy. One by one, the thugs with weapons were beaten away by the rabbit armor, and the guns held by these thugs had no effect on the rabbit armor. Only heavy weapons could cause damage to the rabbit armor's defensive supershell. Unfortunately, the heavy weapons in Hell's Kitchen were stored in other warehouses. The time difference between taking out the weapons from the warehouse and the battlefield was enough for the rabbit armor to beat these people back and forth several times. "Change guns. Armor-piercing bullets." Someone shouted, "Equip armor-piercing bullets." They saw their own weaknesses, so they rushed into the weapons warehouse and prepared to change to another weapon with greater lethality. But it was too late. Bang bang bang. Under Anton's control, the rabbit armor rushed all the way and knocked down hundreds of thugs. With the help of shadows and powerful metal fists, the rabbit armor was like a man without a man, and the opponent caused little damage to the rabbit armor. Whoosh. Suddenly, a sharp dart came from a distance. Kai. The dart penetrated the connection between the hands and feet of the rabbit armor and embedded deeply. Boom. The next second, the dart exploded. The rabbit armor shook and looked safe and sound, but Anton, who was far away in Los Angeles, could see a message. Rabbit armor, durability decreased by 3%, damage rate 5%. The explosion of the dart caused damage to the rabbit armor. Although the damage rate was extremely low and had no impact on the battle, it could be seen that the guy who shot this dart was no longer the simple guy Anton was facing now. Oh. Through the eyes of the rabbit armor, Anton saw the bald man who shot the dart. Just by looking at the target tattoo on the bald man's forehead, he knew his identity. Bullseye. King Bing is really involved with the Brotherhood. Anton was not surprised. He had just tortured the Brotherhood members he had dealt with in the Empire State Building and got relevant information, and now it was just verified. Without panic, he jumped up. The heavy body burst out with amazing sensitivity and attacked the Bullseye. Bullseye certainly wouldn't be stupid enough to fight the rabbit armor head on. Although he could fight, he could recognize that compared with the iron monster in front of him, his advantage was his amazing dart skills. So he fired darts left and right. But his body retreated rapidly, without any intention of engaging in hand-to-hand combat with the rabbit armor. But then, his pupils shrank. Boom. The barrel on the shoulder of the rabbit armor burst into flames, and the powerful shells rushed out of the barrel, carrying dazzling flames, and landing near Bullseye. A roar like a meteor falling to the ground resounded. The airwave raised visible air ripples, rippling in all directions. Bullseye was caught in the huge shockwave and could not keep his balance and hit the wall on one side heavily. Gray smoke rose. Swish. In an instant, a terrifying sound tore through the smoke, and a fist at least twice the size of a casserole landed fiercely on Bullseye's chest. Puff. Bullseye could not help but smash through the wall behind him and was buried in bricks and rubble. He was in a bad physical condition. At this time, his eyes widened and blood spurted out. He did not expect that he would be defeated so quickly. Bullseye boss. The smoke soon dissipated a little, and the thugs beside him were shocked. Pa. Bullseye spat out a mouthful of blood and spit, and stood up from the collapsed ruins. He looked coldly at the rabbit armor in front of him, holding the darts between his fingertips, and while the distance between the two sides was close enough, he stabbed it hard into the joints of the rabbit armor, intending to repeat the old trick. Caca. But as soon as he started, his face suddenly changed. The rocket launchers on the shoulders of the rabbit armor all turned their directions and aimed at the Bullseye in front of them. Seeing this scene, the thugs around held their breath and stopped helping, fearing that they would get too close and even more afraid of alarming this tough guy in iron. Heavy weapons like rocket launchers are not toys for playing house. The place where the rocket exploded just now was far away from the crowd. Under Anton's special control, no one died. These people thought it was good luck. But now, at the critical moment, they dare not leave their lives to luck. Seeing Bullseye's body frozen, a disdainful snort came from the voice player of the rabbit armor. Bang. He knocked the guy unconscious with a punch, and rushed into the corridor with the unconscious Bullseye. Through infrared scanning, Anton almost didn't stop, and immediately found a secret room. But at this time, the secret room was empty. Another punch smashed the passage in the wall of the secret room, and chased out again. Hell's Kitchen. Outskirts. There was a black bulletproof luxury car parked on the road. The luxury car was several sizes larger than ordinary cars. It seemed to be a customized model, and the owner's status and identity were fully displayed. Kingpin's huge body fit in the car just right. Sloan, who was of normal build and even had a hunched back due to old age, felt as if he was in a small room. Mr. Fisk, I don't think I've ever heard of any grudges between you and Batman. Suddenly, Sloan broke the silence in the car. Isn't he called a superhero in the newspapers? Kingpin's face was calm. He was strong enough inside and never cared about people hating him, and of course he didn't care about people targeting him. In fact, assassination and being assassinated were what he experienced every day. He said, there are many people who want to be heroes, and I have offended even more people, so it doesn't matter if there are any grudges with him. What's important is that he will soon become an unwilling ghost under my huge empire. Bang. As soon as he finished speaking, a figure fell from the sky and stepped heavily on the front of this luxury car that was several sizes larger than an ordinary car. Crack, crack, crack. The hood of the car was directly crushed. However, this car is expensive and has bulletproof measures on the outside. The huge impact force that fell from the sky did not cause any damage to the overall frame of the car. Kingpin and Sloan in the car shook with the car, staring at the figure in front of the car windshield. Both of them looked gloomy, very ugly. Batman. King uttered a few words through his teeth and clenched his fists. Of course, this car is not only bulletproof, but also soundproof. Fortunately, Anton knows lip reading and can see that this huge man is muttering his name, so he waved to him and gave him an unfriendly greeting. Then, he threw the bullseye in his hand aside and jumped up again. In midair, the cannon on his shoulder adjusted its angle and aimed at the windshield of the luxury car, and the flames burst out. Chapter 44, Mutual Appreciation. The shell broke through the air. It hit the windshield with a brilliant tail flame. Kingpin and Sloan's faces changed drastically. Although this car is bulletproof, it is not at the same level as a shell, and they are probably powerless to deal with it. Batman moved too fast, and they had no time to react. They could only protect their bodies and shrink behind the backrest of the front seat to resist the flames that would surely sweep the entire car. Boom! Exclamation mark. The next moment, the shell blew the entire car several meters into the air. Kingpin rolled in the car for a while, with bruises and burns on his body, but fortunately it was not fatal, and could only be considered a minor injury. Thanks to his money, he also took the possibility of being attacked into consideration when customizing this car. If he had saved a little money, he would not be safe at this time. Sloan's physical fitness is far worse than Kingpin's. He fell in the car with a bloody head. After a while, he crawled to the side of the road from the broken window and lay on his back on the curb, gasping for breath, unable to move. Kingpin was furious and kicked the broken car door away. He stared at the bunny armor not far away with an extremely ugly face. He clenched his fists and there was fire in his eyes. For so many years, he, the king of the underground world, had never been so embarrassed. Batman. Kingpin said word by word, staring at the bunny armor in front of him. Kingpin, it's our first meeting. It seems that you are impressed by me. Through the bunny armor, Anton greeted Kingpin in a friendly way and walked forward slowly. Kingpin did not flinch. Although the metal shell of the bunny armor looked very bluffing, he was gifted and had trained his muscles to an incredible level. After testing, his strength far exceeded that of ordinary people. Even facing a mecha, he would not feel inferior. I will tear you apart. Kingpin blurted out this sentence from between his teeth, stepped on his feet, and burst out with a speed that was inconsistent with his fat body, and rushed to the front of the bunny armor in an instant. Bang! Exclamation mark. The bunny armor punched him. Caca. There was a slight sound of weight coming from the mechanical bearing. Anton was not in a hurry and used the shells. However, Kingpin suddenly stepped back, as if he had a premonition, picked up the cane that he had dropped beside the abandoned car, and quickly pressed the hidden trigger. Whoosh! A bullet was fired from the cane. It collided with the shell that had just been released. Boom! A huge fire exploded in the air, and the air wave was centered at the collision point, sweeping in all directions, blowing the hem of Kingpin's suit. The firelight reflected on Kingpin's face. His face was still cold, and he looked at the rabbit armor coldly, with a posture of fighting to the death. Anton, who was far away in Los Angeles, narrowed his eyes. He underestimated Kingpin. This underground king of New York and even the United States really has extraordinary abilities. After thinking for a moment, the rabbit armor took a few steps back. Obviously, facing the furious Kingpin, who showed this all-out attitude, simple wrestling could not solve the problem. The most important thing is that Anton has achieved the purpose of tonight's operation, so there is no need to fight to the death with Kingpin. The fight between the two of them can be left to the future. Are you going to run away? Kingpin seemed to see Anton's intention. He used his foul mouth skills that he had hidden for many years and said in a low voice, "That's it. There is still a long way to go, Wilson Fisk." The rabbit armor released a cold electronic voice, and then Kingpin saw this guy picked up the bullseye beside him, walked to the other side, and picked up Sloan, who was struggling powerlessly. Do you think I don't exist? Kingpin was furious, thinking that the guy in front of him didn't take him seriously at all and humiliated him in front of him. Whoosh. He couldn't help but punch the rabbit armor. Boom. The next moment, he was stopped by a powerful artillery shell. When Kingpin dealt with the artillery shell in anger, the huge iron monster in front of him disappeared with a gust of air and the smoke that was blown away. Fuck. Kingpin was furious and his face was extremely ugly. He looked at the dark alley and shouted angrily, not caring whether the other party could hear him or not. Batman, I will find you. Ignoring the shouts behind him, the bunny armor carried a person in each hand and shuffled quickly through the city. Although it was night, the traffic in the Big Apple was still congested. A shocking figure appeared on the streets of New York again. People cheered and recognized this figure. Batman. Although it was different from the original appearance, the pointed ears and iconic armor could not hide the identity of this figure. Where is he going? Who is the person he is holding in his hands? Is he another criminal from somewhere? People talked about it. Some people ran wildly with their mobile phones in hand, just to take pictures of this wonderful scene. They followed all the way to the New York Police Department. Coincidentally, George Stacy returned to the police station with the disabled fraternity members and former fraternity member Carlos after a long traffic jam. Just after parking the car, he saw a familiar figure arriving. No way. George Stacy had a bad feeling, watching the figure come to the New York Police Department and throw it to the two of them. You're welcome. The red eyes of the rabbit armor flashed like stars, as if winking at him. Huh. George Stacy was furious. Thank your mother. The tall figure of the rabbit armor faced George Stacy, and the latter did not look very thin. This picture was inexplicably harmonious. Of course, this was the feeling that others would have when they didn't know about their conversation. Click. In the shadow of the corner, Eddie took a photo without leaving a trace and repeatedly observed it with a smug smile. Tomorrow's front page of the newspaper is here. Mutual appreciation. Work together to catch the murderer. Superhero and the New York Police Department Commissioner. You see, Eddie even thought of the headline for the front page. Anton. Los Angeles. Party venue. A sweet voice came into his ears. Anton turned his head and saw the actor who played Rachel, who was winking at him charmingly. As the leading lady of Batman, although she doesn't have many scenes, it's reasonable for her to be here. When Anton saw her, he subconsciously held his waist and his calves trembled a little. This is a asterisk monster. Anton. It was another familiar voice. When he looked again, Betty came from behind the actress. Her delicate face was no less delicate than the actress's. Her face was expressionless and her tone was cold. Jim is looking for you. Oh, okay, I'll go right away. Anton seemed to have grabbed a life-saving straw and disappeared in front of the two women. It was not until he mixed into the crowd that he stopped and suddenly realized, no, what am I afraid of? I have inherited all the power of Batman. With my current physical fitness, let alone 7 times a night, I can do it 17 times. A man's dignity cannot be thrown away like this. Just as he was about to turn around to regain his dignity, Anton suddenly saw Jim waving at him in front of him, adjusted his mood, and walked over. Forget it. Forget it. Business is more important. Behind him, Betty and the actress looked at each other. The actress looked ugly. Betty sneered and lip-synced to the actress. Bitch. Thanks to book friend 2019072600332124 for the tip. Chapter 45 Kingpin. I just want results. Jim, it seems that you have figured it out. Welcome to join DC. Anton chatted with Jim for a while and quickly determined the next operation process of DC. Jim was naturally responsible for the film section. Browning Toby, the gold medal screenwriter who had worked with him quite happily before, was responsible for the screenwriting. Anton controlled the creativity and general direction. In addition to movies, DC will continue to recruit talents and expand into entertainment industries such as novels, comics, and animation. At the same time, Anton will open a forum for serialized novels on the official website of the Daily Bugle to serialize stories such as Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman. As time goes by, when enough users are accumulated, this forum will be separated as a carrier of online literature. In short, the starting point network in the Marvel world. This grand blueprint made Jim excited. However, Jim has been in Hollywood for so many years, and every year someone draws these blueprints to him, but very few people succeed. The only difference is that Anton has something that these people don't have. First, Anton has proved his talent with Batman Begins. Second, Anton has the Jameson family behind him and owns the Daily Bugle, making him a big shot in the media industry. Compared with others, Anton will not encounter any difficulties in the entertainment industry, but will thrive in it. Of course, what Jim doesn't know is that the development of his career is only the most insignificant part of Anton's plan. What Anton wants to achieve more is the fan value that corresponds to the heroes of the Justice League. At present, Batman's fan value 14.8 million. Superman's fan value 0. Wonder Woman's fan value 0. Flash's fan value 0. In fact, except for the main template hero Batman that Anton exchanged first, the rest are all big duck eggs. The fan value required to exchange the remaining heroes ranges from 10 million, 20 million, 30 million, 40 million, 50 million, and 100 million. Anton knew that Batman was worth 50 million fans, but the system gave him a small break, 9.98 million, which was a huge amount of money. Go for it, worker. Anton was ambitious. Jim saw his enthusiasm and thought that he was looking forward to the future, so he couldn't help but get excited. If Anton's ambition came true, with the guarantee Anton gave him, he could at least become a billionaire. If it was successfully listed, it would become the world's largest entertainment company. A net worth of 10 billion is not a dream. Anton, don't worry, I won't let you down. Jim patted his chest and promised solemnly. Anton was puzzled. Finally, in a friendly atmosphere, the celebration party ended. Anton woke up alone in his room, regretting that he didn't seek revenge on the actress last night. He went downstairs to eat the breakfast prepared by the servants and met Betty. Betty looked at him strangely. What's wrong? Anton spread his hands. Betty, this is not the first time you have seen my handsome face. Just tell me what you want to say. Betty said, you must not have watched the New York news this morning. Anton asked back, why would I watch that stuff when I have nothing to do? Betty said, last night, Batman appeared in New York and captured the leader of the assassin organization Brotherhood and its main members, and also arrested a gangster thug nicknamed Bullseye. Isn't this great? Anton ate the sandwich in one bite, in a good mood. Finally, the suspicion of me being Batman has been cleared. I'm Anton. Maybe. Betty shrugged. She was also a little lost in this wave. But even if Anton is not Batman, he has a close relationship with Batman. This is a well-known fact. Okay, let Jim take care of Los Angeles. He will prepare for Batman's second film, The Dark Knight. Meanwhile, we should go back to New York to prepare for other things. Anton finished his breakfast and waved to Betty. Get my plane ready. Sorry, you fired all the employees on your plane yesterday, so it can't fly now. Now it was Betty's turn to spread her hands. What? Didn't I ask you to go back and fire them? Anton's face darkened, exposing the fact that he was a capitalist, and he snorted. Your bonus for this month is gone. New York. The news that Batman appeared again has spread all over the streets. Although it was just a small appearance, for Batman's base, everyone here knows Batman's name. Even if you don't like it, you have to follow the trend. This is the herd mentality. According to the Daily Bugle, Batman dealt with a killer organization called the Brotherhood and directly arrested the leader and main members of the Brotherhood. At the same time, in the process of arresting these people, he also arrested a famous gangster and sent him to the New York Police Department. Although the New York Police Department did not respond, the color photo published on the front page of the newspaper showed that this was an irrefutable fact. Along with the news published in the Daily Bugle, the photo of New York Police Commissioner George Stacey and Batman also spread throughout the streets. To be honest, as the commissioner of the New York Police Department, George Stacey has never been so famous. It is true that he has been in the newspaper before, but being surrounded by reporters is unprecedented. Today, he just got to work, and before he parked his car, he saw a group of reporters who recognized his license plate and chased him to ask questions about Batman. Excuse me, has the New York Police Department reached a cooperation with Batman? Is Batman an illegal vigilante? Will the New York Police Department give Batman the power to enforce the law? Or arrest Batman? George couldn't stand being asked, so he threw down a sentence no comment and quickly squeezed out of the crowd and entered the police station. What they didn't know was that at this time in a high-rise building in Manhattan, two people were also talking about Batman. Many people think that Anton Jameson, the owner of the Daily Bugle and the grandson of Jonah Jameson, is the real Batman. Wesley said, after investigation, we also think that Anton is Batman. But Anton was in Los Angeles last night, and Batman was still in New York, so Anton's identity was ruled out. At present, there are no other clues. Of course, what is certain is that Batman must have a close relationship with Anton of the Daily Bugle. Kingpin was very dissatisfied after hearing this, and stared at his men in front of him with anger on his face. So you haven't found out anything? His suppressed anger almost exploded from his chest, and he spoke word by word. What you just said is bullshit. I want the identity of Batman. Wesley Welsh swallowed his saliva. As Kingpin's right-hand man, he rarely showed such a nervous look. Once it appeared, it could only mean that Kingpin's emotions were about to get out of control. At this moment, no matter what he said or did, it would be useless. Anton must know the identity of Batman. Wesley said hurriedly with sweat all over his forehead. Then go and catch him. Kingpin spoke slowly, leaving no room for doubt. I just want results. Don't let me down, Wesley. Chapter 46 Processing. Finally, Anton and Betty booked 2 tickets to return to New York. As for the private jet, they would wait until they recruited new employees before driving it back. Anyway, in the short term, Anton should not have to travel between the two places. When he walked out of the airport, there were still reporters who received the news in advance and blocked him at the door. The airlines in the United States are as shameless as ever. Fortunately, Anton was well prepared and contacted good people in advance to isolate a group of reporters. Although he is no longer considered Batman, it is well known that, even if he is not Batman, he has a close relationship with Batman. This alone is enough to attract the attention of reporters. In addition, as a talented Hollywood director, the news that he has just established a company cannot be hidden from these uncrowned kings of public opinion. After Tony Stark disappeared, he, the newly rising rich kid, replaced Tony as the #1 target of entertainment gossip tabloids. Even Anton's Twitter account, which had been abandoned for a long time, has millions of followers. Of course, it is far from tens of millions more than Tony Stark, but don't forget that his millions have grown rapidly in this month. To some extent, his rise to fame is comparable to that of some Hollywood stars. Anton, Batman appeared in New York last night. Did you know about his actions in advance? Anton, can you tell us what Batman is related to you? A lot of questions could not be suppressed. Anton sighed. After several minutes, he finally got on the nanny car sent by the Daily Bugle to pick him up. Whoosh! The car drove away quickly. The reporters were a little helpless, but at least they did not gain nothing. They could just add some text when they got home and publish gossip tabloids. Destroy the Brotherhood, arrest Bullseye, and reward 4 million justice points. Current justice points. 6 million. Sitting in the nanny car, Anton seemed to close his eyes to rest, but he was actually checking the system prompts in his mind. He spent 8 million to exchange for the rabbit armor and finally earned back half of the justice points. It was not a loss, but a profit. Now the remaining 6 million justice points are enough for him to exchange for a special armor, although it can only be the cheapest one. Of course, Anton doesn't have this idea now. If justice value is not a necessary consumption, it's better to save it. At that time, it would be best to turn a bicycle into a sports car directly, all in one step. If he can make a Hellbat or the ultimate armor, Anton is confident that he can rush out of the earth to the universe to challenge Thanos. The premise is that Thanos does not have the infinite gloves. The infinite gloves are a bug, and it is unreasonable to put them in any world. Just like the dragon in Dragon Ball, it can realize all your wishes. This kind of law-like operation can only be described as a bug. Soon, the car drove away from the airport. Anton finished thinking and opened his eyes to look out the window. After a moment, he frowned slightly and found something wrong. Someone is following. There is a black car behind him that is following the nanny car he is riding in. Anton will not be wrong. Judging from the experience of Bruce Wayne inherited in his mind, the movement trajectory of this black car will definitely not escape the word tracking. This is a premeditated action. Who is it? Anton's mind flashed through several names, but he couldn't be sure of any of them. The only one who might cause trouble for him, the Life Foundation, was now in trouble and was negotiating a takeover with Oscorp. Could it be someone he had offended when he was incarnated as Batman and he was implicated? Kingpin? An idea flashed through his mind. At this time, the car turned into a narrow, deserted road, which was quite remote and had no cameras. It was the best opportunity for the car behind to get out. Stop. Anton suddenly spoke, his tone solemn and unquestionable. Kai. The driver naturally followed his boss's advice. Betty was puzzled. Crash. Anton pushed open the car door and ordered, "You guys go." He looked at the black car coming behind him and said calmly, "I suddenly have something to deal with." Betty frowned. She looked at Anton's back, then looked at the black car driving slowly behind the nanny car, and felt that something was wrong. "Anton, what happened?" "Nothing." Anton waved his hands and turned his head back. "Listen to me. Go quickly. I'm the boss. Let's go." Betty knew something was wrong, but she chose to believe Anton and said to the driver, "Go quickly." The driver also realized that something was wrong, hesitated for a moment, stepped on the accelerator and drove away from the path. Kai. The black car behind the Nana's car also stopped in front of Anton. A group of burly men got out of the car. "It's really surprising that you took the initiative to send yourself to us." The leading burly man smiled grimly. "I hope you can cooperate with our next action. Otherwise, we can't guarantee that you, the genius director, will not lose any limbs. Are you Jinbing's people?" Anton looked at him and asked suddenly. The people in front of him were all stunned. This time, they didn't need to answer. Anton already had the answer in his mind. So without hesitation, he suddenly hit the strong man's lower body with his knee, causing the strong man's face to twist in pain, screaming, squatting on the ground with his hands covering, unable to move. Go. Catch him. Don't use guns. Don't kill him. Catch him alive." Following the command roared by the leading thug with a ferocious face, the remaining thugs quickly took out weapons from the car and rushed towards the unarmed Anton. Seeing this, Anton not only did not retreat, but took the initiative to meet him. Bang, bang, bang. 3 punches and 2 kicks knocked over these thugs. Then he took a metal baseball bat and gently knocked the thug who was kicked in the lower body by him, with a helpless look on his face. "King Bing looks down on me too much and actually sent you guys to tie me up." He could see from King Bing's behavior that King Bing didn't take him seriously at all. He was definitely affected by the Batman he played. After all, in the eyes of everyone, even if he was not Batman, he must know who Batman was. I. The thug swallowed his saliva, his face full of fear. He didn't expect that Anton, who was weak in the information and didn't like sports or fitness, would have such a terrifying fighting ability. "Don't say it. I don't want to hear it." Anton restrained the expression on his face and hit the guy's head with a baseball bat. Bang. The strong man fell to the ground unconscious with a bloody head. Anton had a blank expression on his face, not worried that the stick would kill the strong man. He controlled the strength so as not to kill the guy. If he is lucky, he will at most lie in bed for a year or 2, and then leave some sequelae. If he is unlucky, he will probably spend the rest of his life in a wheelchair, or in a hospital bed. Although Batman never kills people, the way Batman deals with criminals is much more brutal than ordinary heroes. It is only the Joker's gang of villains who rely on the supreme editorial department and the love of readers to escape Batman's most cruel methods again and again. As we all know, not killing is the bottom line. But as long as you don't break the bottom line, isn't it the same to do anything? Then, under the terrified eyes of the thugs who fell to the ground, Anton sneered and hit each of them with a stick. Passing the unconscious crowd, he casually took off a person's baseball cap and put it on. Then, the black car driven by the thugs left the path and headed for the Continental Hotel in Manhattan, leaving behind a group of unconscious and seriously injured thugs, indicating that a fierce, one-sided fight had taken place here. Chapter 47 Partners. Continental Hotel. As soon as Anton walked to the door, he saw the familiar black guy at the front desk directing the decorators. to change the decoration of the Continental Hotel. Before that, when he transformed into Batman and swept the Continental Hotel was destroyed, and many killers were arrested and imprisoned near New York. Only a few people escaped trial by chance. The black guy was one of the survivors. Seeing Anton coming, the black guy immediately recalled the fear of being dominated not long ago. His face changed slightly, and he said respectfully, "Mr. Anton, please come this way. Mr. Winston is in the office on the top floor of the hotel. I think he will be very happy to see you." "Where is the judge?" Anton said, throwing the car keys in his hand to him. "Get rid of this car for me. The judge is in room 213. If you need it, I can call her for you. Let her go to Winston's office to find me." "Okay." After a few simple conversations, the black man took the key and watched Anton go upstairs without looking back. It was not until Anton disappeared from his sight that he breathed a long sigh of relief and felt that the tension in his heart was relieved a lot. Knowing Anton's identity, he dared not show any neglect to Anton. That night, Batman, who seemed to be the devil of hell, really put too much pressure on him. After going upstairs, Anton met Winston, who came to greet him. Obviously, the black receptionist informed Winston before he went upstairs. "Mr. Anton, welcome to the Continental Hotel again." Winston smiled and shook hands with him, and this time his expression was not as panicked as last time. Anton and the High Table have reached a certain degree of cooperation, and Batman is no longer an enemy, but a friend with him. The previous losses of the Continental Hotel were completely compensated from the moment Sloan and the main members of the Brotherhood were arrested by the police. If there was no Winston, there would be no cooperation between the High Table and Batman. To a certain extent, Winston has made great contributions to the High Table in eradicating the Brotherhood. "The judge will be here soon," Winston said with a smile. "Before that, I have a question." Anton sat in front of Winston, looked into his eyes, and slowly said, "What do you think of Hell's Kitchen?" "Hell's Kitchen?" Winston's eyes flashed. "They are a group of neighbors who like to make trouble." "Just neighbors?" Anton crossed his legs, seeing that Winston was not sincere. "You must feel uncomfortable with such a group of neighbors who like to make trouble around you." Winston narrowed his eyes. "What do you mean?" "Don't play dumb in front of me. You know very well what I'm talking about." "Winston, how I took Sloan and Bullseye from Kingpin to the police station. You must know the process better than me, the person involved." Anton was too lazy to talk nonsense with the old fox, and said bluntly, "I want to deal with Kingpin, and the Continental Hotel must cooperate with my actions." After a pause, looking at the judge, Aisha Kate, who had just pushed the door in with a cold face, he added, "Including the High Table, you all have to cooperate with me." At the same time, Manhattan, Fisk Company, an office. Bang. Someone was throwing things, looking extremely angry. It is worth mentioning that the one who was angry this time was not Kingpin, but Wesley, his capable subordinate who managed the company for him. He let him run away. Wesley was furious. When he thought of the news just now, he was terrified, fearing that his boss Kingpin would find out. If Kingpin knew that he had messed up, he would probably suffer. He knew very well that Batman had offended his boss badly in the fight that night. Not only did he let him run away, but all our people were hospitalized, and 2 of them were even paralyzed. The others had to lie down for a year or 2. "Is this how you work for me?" Wesley wanted to take out a knife and kill the thug in front of him immediately. "Mr. Wesley, we underestimated him. Please give us another chance." The thug was trembling with fear. The way he faced Wesley now was just like when Wesley faced Kingpin, and his helplessness was beyond words. "Then find more people, catch him, and find out Batman's identity." Wesley spoke word by word. "Understood." The thug nodded quickly. "And the matter of Bullseye, how is the police station going? Has the bail process been completed?" Wesley asked again. "It's almost done," the thug said. "Bullseye has no criminal record. Although many people know his identity as a killer, there is no evidence and the police cannot convict him. He will be released soon." "Very good." Wesley breathed a sigh of relief. This was good news anyway. He waved his hand to let the thugs retreat, sat on the chair, and thought anxiously, if the matter was not done, how to deal with Kingpin's anger. "The High Table agrees to cooperate with your actions." Aisha did not disappoint Anton, and gave a positive answer. She glanced at Winston again. When necessary, we will send out killers, and the Continental Hotel will be responsible for the intelligence. Happy cooperation. Anton's expression was calm. He had guessed this result long ago. Although he and the High Table had just established a cooperative relationship, as long as the High Table had ambitions for New York, it would not miss the opportunity to expand. Hell's Kitchen. This is a super big cake. If the High Table can successfully annex Hell's Kitchen, the Continental Hotel will become the new king of the New York Underground. There is one thing I must emphasize in advance. As he expected, Aisha said solemnly, once Kingpin falls, his territory will belong to the High Table. I'm not interested in Hell's Kitchen. Anton had no objection, and waved his hand. I'm only interested in sending Kingpin to prison. Prison? Aisha thought of Batman's principles and shrugged undeniably. In her opinion, Anton's principle of not killing is not indecisive, but just like taking off pants to fart. Anton could not have imagined what would happen to these people after entering prison. At least, the High Table has already launched an action against Sloan, leaving no chance for the remaining Brotherhood remnants. At the latest tomorrow, Sloan will die suddenly in prison. Speaking of Kingpin, I think of someone. Seeing that the two had reached an agreement, Winston suddenly asked, Daredevil, have you heard of him? Daredevil? Aisha had a lot of information. As a judge, she was no stranger to New York. She squinted her eyes and said, the Lone Ranger who only acts in Hell's Kitchen, and is at odds with Kingpin? Yes. Winston said, if we want to deal with Kingpin, he will be happy to join us. He paused and looked at Anton, especially at the invitation of Batman. Leave it to me. Anton nodded. I will find him, and invite him to join. Daredevil, or Daredevil. Matt Murdock, a blind lawyer and Kingpin's mortal enemy. Anton recalled the information about Daredevil in his mind. He had to admit that Winston, the old fox, rarely made a good suggestion. Chapter 48 Matt Murdock. After talking with Elsa and Winston, Anton left the Continental Hotel and returned to the Daily Bugle. Anton, are you okay? Betty was waiting for Anton at the door, her face full of tension, ready to call the police immediately if she didn't see Anton for a long time. Anton had a strange look on his face when he got out of the car. Betty thought back afterwards that the black car coming towards them and following behind her nanny car was definitely a ghost. Of course I'm fine. Anton smiled and waved his hand. Betty, don't worry about me. You might as well worry about other people. After a pause, he said, where is Eddie? Office. Betty pointed to the room behind her. Creak. Anton pushed the door open and saw Eddie looking through the documents. Anton, you're back. Eddie was not surprised to see Anton and said with a smile, today's newspaper sales are good, beyond expectations. I think you will double my bonus. If you took the photo of Batman not because of my order, I would do so. Anton shrugged, then sat in front of Eddie and said, you should know that I caught a guy named Bullseye. Yes. Eddie nodded. As far as I know, this Bullseye has a strong background. Anton said, he is Kingpin's man. Kingpin? The king of Hell's Kitchen? Eddie pondered for a moment. To be honest, I'm not familiar with him, but when I was a reporter in New York, I met many people in Hell's Kitchen, and they all kept secrets about Kingpin. Then you must not know. Kingpin's real name is Wilson Fisk. Anton said. The super rich man in the real estate and energy industry? Eddie was really surprised to hear this. He is actually the underground emperor of New York and even the United States. This is really unexpected. Anton crossed his arms and said, you know, Batman caught Bullseye and offended Kingpin. So, our current target is Fisk Company. Collect evidence of Kingpin's crimes as soon as possible and send him to the prison that suits him best. This is what we will do next. Understood. Eddie immediately said, I will immediately investigate Fisk Company and notify you immediately if there is any news. Very good. Anton nodded with satisfaction. After get off work, Anton and Eddie found a place to drink and did not part until the evening. Eddie went to find his old acquaintance in New York and prepared to launch a criminal investigation into Kingpin. Anton walked towards the destination not far away, Hell's Kitchen. Although there are only 8 small streets, the crimes here are probably not comparable to 8 Satans. Especially in Hell's Kitchen at night, all kinds of people are everywhere. This is a paradise for scum. Not counting the actions of the rabbit armor last night, this was the first time that Anton officially set foot in this place full of crime and gangs. He looked around, as if he could smell the smell of alcohol and flying leaves in the air everywhere. Of course, his goal was not to clean up this place, but to find someone. The blind lawyer was very famous in Hell's Kitchen. Many people knew such a person. A recognized good man. While Anton was thinking, he stood at the intersection, watching the traffic coming and going, and waited for a long time. Finally, a man wearing sunglasses came from the intersection with a blind stick. Da-da-da-da. The blind man wearing sunglasses tapped the blind stick and walked forward slowly, and Anton followed behind this man step by step, like a stalker. But he was not following a woman, but a man. It sounds even more perverted. When the two turned into a dark and narrow alley with no one in front and behind. Whoosh. A strong wind killed Anton, who entered the alley from behind. Anton took a wrong step and dodged the cane swinging overhead. He then took a step forward and forced the blind man in front of him to retreat. His fist, which had been prepared long ago, landed on the blind man's chest from bottom to top. Bang, bang, bang. The blind man took a few steps back involuntarily, with a sharp pain in his chest. Although he couldn't see, all his attention was focused on the enemy in front of him. The blind man could feel that there was a man in front of him, and he was a young man with extraordinary skills. "Who are you? This place doesn't belong to you," the blind man asked in a deep voice. He had lived in Hell's Kitchen since he was a child, and he was sure that he had never seen the man in front of him. He could even vaguely feel that the enemy in front of him was not from Hell's Kitchen. Night Demon. First meeting. To his surprise, the young boy in front of him actually revealed his identity that he had hidden for a long time. Immediately afterwards, the boy's next sentence shocked him. "I'm Batman. I remember that the Batman novels have also been published in Braille. If you know the content, you can call me Bruce Wayne." Anton looked at the blind man in front of him and smiled as if he had met a fellow. The brief fight just now gave him a general impression of the blind man's fighting power. To some extent, Daredevil is a bit like Bruce Wayne, an ascetic who breaks the limits of the human body. Batman. The blind man was a little confused. He didn't expect to get this answer. Batman. The man who swept the Continental Hotel as soon as he debuted, and even solved the Life Foundation in San Francisco, and made Kingpin lose face, appeared in front of him so easily. "How do I know you're not lying to me?" The blind man could hear that Anton's heartbeat was normal and there was no sign of lying, but his many experiences as a lawyer made him understand that lying reactions can be deliberately concealed through preparation, so he didn't dare to trust a stranger casually. Bang. Anton snapped his fingers, and suddenly the armor appeared on his body. Then he smiled. "No one should be able to imitate this way of appearance, right? Batman, it's really you." The blind man was shocked. When he was a child, he was contaminated by radioactive material spilled on a truck and became blind, but this unexpectedly enhanced his other senses and gave him the superpower of super senses. And because of his father's death and his childhood experiences, he became a powerful warrior. His super senses are very abnormal, and the most important thing is that he can form a radar-like concept map in his mind through the fluctuations of sound, so as to capture changes in the outside world. That is why he was extremely shocked by Anton's transformation. He muttered and asked in a tone of doubt, "How did you find me?" Anton said bluntly, "There is only one blind lawyer in Hell's Kitchen, Matt Murdock. You are not difficult to find. You can find my identity, so it is not difficult to find me." Matt was silent for a moment, led the way in front, and said as he walked, "This is not the place to talk. Come to my house and sit down, Batman. My honor." The two walked into a house with extremely simple decoration style one after another. The house was very empty, but it had everything it should have. There was a sack hanging in the middle, as well as a lot of fitness equipment, which was obviously where Matt worked out. In addition, Anton could tell at a glance that the space in this house was wrong. There should be a dark room behind a wall, which was probably where Matt stored the Daredevil props. "Batman, I don't understand why you came to me." Matt poured Anton a glass of water like a normal person and sat opposite Anton with a blind stick in his hand, his face calm. "You know, I made Kingpin suffer a great loss and sent Bullseye to the police station, so Kingpin will definitely retaliate against me. In fact, he has already taken action. Anton smiled and spoke calmly, getting straight to the point. Before things get worse, I decided to take the initiative and send him to jail as well. What do you think, Matt? Are you interested in joining our camp? If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 49 Harvest. It's harder to send Kingpin to jail than to kill him, Matt said in a flat tone. As Kingpin's old rival, he was not unfamiliar with Kingpin's true identity. Wilson Fisk, a real estate tycoon and energy tycoon born and raised in Hell's Kitchen, is an extremely successful entrepreneur who has his hands full in the underworld. Almost 40% of criminal activities in the United States are caused by Kingpin. Destroying a drug processing plant, stopping a smuggling case, and arresting some gangsters may offend Kingpin's hegemony. Especially in New York, it can be said that he can cover the sky with one hand. The trivial charges are useless. There is no evidence for the felony that can be sentenced to Kingpin. This is the difficulty. You may not know that the bullseye you sent to the police station will be released tonight. Matt looked at Anton with his lifeless eyes wearing sunglasses and said slowly, the police station cannot convict him. Even if his identity as a killer is well known, no one can find evidence of his murder. This is the power of Kingpin. Bullseye? If I can catch him once, I can catch him a second time. Anton was disdainful. Is this your principle of not killing? Matt asked. Wouldn't it be easier to just kill him than to send him to jail? From this sentence, it seems that Matt has some understanding of Batman. Not killing is the bottom line, but for my enemies, living will only make them more miserable. Anton said. Even if you send Kingpin to jail, there will be another Kingpin. Matt changed the subject and said, what are your plans? Anton said, the High Table is my partner. After Kingpin falls, the High Table will take over Hell's Kitchen. The High Table is a rule-abiding organization. If you know something about it, you will know that after the High Table enters Hell's Kitchen, it will at least not be more corrupt than when Kingpin was there. You're right. Matt was silent for a moment. Out of hatred for Kingpin, he would rather see another organization rise in Hell's Kitchen than Kingpin fall. So he stood up and held out his hand to Anton. Happy cooperation. Happy cooperation. Anton shook hands with him and smiled. After establishing a cooperative relationship, the two talked for a long time, and Anton got a lot of information about Kingpin from Matt. What surprised him the most was that the source of Kingpin's weapons was actually Stark Industries. Matt said, Tony Stark should not care about these revenues, but Stark Industries is an arms giant, and Tony Stark is a willful playboy who only cares about inventions, and is not good at management, which has bred many termites inside. I currently only know that most of Kingpin's weapons come from Stark Industries, but I haven't found out who is trading with him. I can only be sure that it must be a powerful figure. Stark Industries. Anton touched his chin and thought of someone. Originally, he planned to leave this person to Tony to sublimate when he came back, but now it seems that he may not be able to wait for Tony Stark, and he will have to deal with him in advance. Do you have any clues? Matt heard the subtle changes in Anton's words and his heart moved. Yes, I do have some clues. Anton nodded and said bluntly, Abade Stan, the chief executive of Stark Industries, is not a good person. But I'm not sure if he is the one who traded weapons with Kingpin. Abade Stan, if it is really him, it does make sense. Matt nodded. Leave this matter to me to investigate. As for you, continue to look for evidence of Kingpin's crime. Anton ordered, wait until you find evidence. It will be the best time to take action against Kingpin. Otherwise, it will be useless. Understood. Matt said, keep in touch. Okay. Anton said goodbye to Matt immediately. He left Hell's Kitchen, took out his mobile phone, saw Eddie's message, and met Eddie outside Hell's Kitchen again. How are you doing? Anton greeted Eddie. I met an old friend, Ben Urich, who is in the same industry as me, works for another media, and is keen on fighting criminals. Eddie smiled. Coincidentally, he has also been investigating Kingpin recently. Did he gain anything? Anton asked. The harvest is much greater than we imagined. Eddie chuckled. You have to double my bonus this time. Come on, you are already a multi-millionaire. The next day, the Daily Bugle took the initiative to fire the first shot. The Emperor of the Underworld, Kingpin and his underground kingdom. The front page headline and content are real information written by Eddie and the staff of the Daily Bugle. After staying up late, it reveals Kingpin's true identity. Wilson Fisk, a wealthy real estate developer and energy tycoon, who also has investments in many fields and can be said to be one of the top rich people. No one expected that this guy was actually mixed up in the underworld. However, although there was no exact charge or evidence of Kingpin's crime in the newspaper, Kingpin's background was thoroughly exposed. Wilson Fisk grew up in Hell's Kitchen. His father was a small gang leader who died on the street due to a gang fight. For Wilson, who was still young but unruly and full of self-consciousness, his father's death did not make him feel sad, but made him have a deeper understanding of the social law of the jungle. From then on, he had the ambition to build his own gangster empire. Driven by this goal, Wilson joined the New York gang, burned, killed, looted, and committed all kinds of evil, and finally ascended to the throne of the gang leader. However, this did not satisfy him. The almost crazy Wilson used his innate evil mind to massacre other gangs, and finally firmly controlled the entire New York and even the American gangs in his own hands. Wilson's gangster empire also gradually turned from a dream into reality. From then on, he hid his true identity and changed his name to Kingpin. During the day, Wilson Fisk was a successful entrepreneur and philanthropist in New York. At night, Kingpin was the underground emperor of New York and even the United States, who had the final say and was powerful. It was a very inspiring story. The biggest problem was that Kingpin had taken a path of no return. With the current credibility of the Daily Bugle and the well-known close relationship between Batman and the Daily Bugle, people have no doubt about the authenticity of this report. The omnipotent netizens even found out that one of the people arrested by Batman during the operation a few nights ago, Bullseye, was Kingpin's subordinate. This shows that Batman and Kingpin have already had a fight. In addition, the omnipotent netizens also learned that Bullseye had been acquitted because the police station could not produce evidence. This shocked the netizens who knew the situation, and the New York Police Department was also scolded and became a hot search. As the director of the New York Police Department, George Stacy was the first to bear the brunt of the infamy and was under great pressure. Arsehole. He gritted his teeth. At the same time, the person in question, Wilson Fisk, or Kingpin, who was located in the Fisk Company building in Manhattan, showed the same expression as George Stacy. Is this how you do things for me? Kingpin glared at the subordinate in front of him, clenched his fist, and wished he could slap the guy in front of him to death. I didn't expect him to do this. Wesley trembled. It's New Year's Day soon. I wish you all a happy New Year's Day. 3 chapters today. The next chapter will still be at 8 p.m. Please collect and recommend. Chapter 50. Bad people everywhere. Hasn't Bullseye been released? Let Bullseye kill him. Kingpin ordered coldly. Also, send a lawyer's letter to the Daily Bugle. I don't want any more reports about me to circulate on the internet. Tell other media companies not to add fuel to the flames. Let them speak for us. Do you understand? Wesley nodded. I have already given the order. These media companies are smart people and will not make things difficult for us. He paused. As for the Daily Bugle, I will let them know how powerful Kingpin is. Don't let me down again, Wesley. Kingpin looked at Wesley deeply. The latter felt a chill on his back and sweated profusely. He lowered his head and dared not look his boss in the eye. Ring, ring, ring. Suddenly, Kingpin's private mobile phone rang. Seeing the caller ID, Kingpin frowned slightly and pressed the answer button. A few seconds later, his face changed again, and his eyes almost ignited with real flames. Seeing this, Wesley knew that something was wrong. This time, Kingpin's anger was more serious than any time he had seen before. New York is going to be in chaos. At this time, Anton and Eddie were enthusiastically refreshing the comments about Kingpin on the internet in the Daily Bugle. Obviously, the public opinion situation is very good. This is also related to the media credibility accumulated by the Daily Bugle over the years. Everyone is willing to believe in the Daily Bugle. Under such public opinion, Kingpin's true face has been exposed, and he can no longer show the image of a hypocritical businessman and philanthropist. For Anton and others, this is just the first step in combating Kingpin. The rest is to find substantial evidence of Kingpin's crimes, and then send him to prison, preferably so that he will never stand up again. It is similar to the situation when dealing with the Life Foundation, but not exactly the same. The Life Foundation is asking for its own death, and Kingpin is extremely smart and cunning, and is definitely not a person who seeks his own death. Therefore, in comparison, it is more difficult to deal with Kingpin. Ben has gone to verify his conjecture. Eddie suddenly said, "Once we have the result, we can immediately announce Kingpin's crime and put him in the ranks of criminals. At that time, no matter how powerful he is, he can't keep his freedom." The Ben he mentioned was the colleague he mentioned last night, Ben Urich, a reporter who is keen on fighting criminals. Ben Urich knows how powerful Kingpin is, so he is happy to cooperate with the Daily Bugle. Especially in the Daily Bugle, there is an acquaintance like Eddie who knows everything about him. Don't worry, you won't be disappointed. The progress of things was unusually smooth. Anton was quite satisfied, and said with certainty, "Kingpin is the murderer of his father. There is no mistake about this." "Why are you so sure?" Eddie was surprised. "Because a guy like Kingpin who is born evil, nothing he does is strange, even if he was only a teenager back then." Anton's answer was quite meaningful. This was of course false. The truth was that he had seen this episode in his previous life. In his previous life, Daredevil had movies and TV series. Kingpin is the main villain. In addition, Kingpin often appears in other film and television series. In the original setting of the comics, he is the underworld emperor of New York and even the whole United States, and he has provoked superheroes such as the Punisher, Spider-Man, Daredevil, and the Fantastic Four. From this point of view, it is not surprising that Kingpin appears in any version of the superhero. The problem is that every time Kingpin appears, the setting is different due to different versions. Of course, after Ben Urich appeared and told himself through Eddie that Kingpin's father might not have died in a street fight, but died at the hands of Kingpin, Anton determined which version this was. It's not wrong. The Kingpin in this world is mostly a patricide. The reason is that his father abused his mother at home. Unable to bear it, Kingpin killed his father. The mother naturally favors her son. She and her son covered it up and announced to the outside world that Kingpin's father died in a street fight. For a Hell's Kitchen, people die in street fights every day. For the dead, the living people in Hell's Kitchen never care about the dead. The police would not care about the dead in Hell's Kitchen. This is a perfect excuse. In order to verify the facts, Ben Urich found the location of Jinbing's mother, a private nursing home in the suburbs of New York. Ben Urich was sure that he could get the answer from Jinbing's mother, a private nursing home in the suburbs of New York. Ben Urich walked out of the nursing home excitedly. He obviously got the expected answer. However, the only regret is that Jinbing's mother has some dementia and rarely stays awake. If not, Ben Urich would not be able to ask anything. After all, as Jinbing's mother, Ben Urich would not expect her to appear as a witness in court. Any words of such an old man in court would not be accepted. Even so, Jinbing's undefeated body has already cracked. This news is of great importance. Ben Urich took out his mobile phone and wanted to tell Eddie immediately that his guess was confirmed, but he saw a black car driving in front of the nursing home. Someone he didn't expect appeared here. Jinbing. Ben Urich opened his eyes wide. Kingpin seemed to have locked onto his position and walked slowly towards him. The overwhelming murderous aura seemed to solidify into substance, making him feel short of breath. This was the temperament of the underworld king, Ben Urich. Kingpin's face was grim, and there was no trace of smile. At this moment, there was only anger, which was growing in his heart. Obviously, Ben Urich's behavior touched Kingpin's reverse scale. When Ben Urich's body was stiff, and he felt that he could not move under Kingpin's momentum, and was about to face Kingpin's beating, whoosh, a red shadow flew over. Kingpin suddenly dodged, clenched his fist as big as a casserole, and collided with the red shadow. Night Devil. Kingpin looked at the familiar man in front of him, slightly surprised, and sneered, "I didn't expect to see you in the daytime. It seems that you really spared no effort to deal with me." Kingpin, your identity has been exposed, and now you still have the mind to attack innocent people. Matt turned into Daredevil and locked Kingpin's position with his voice, and then ordered Ben Urich behind him, go. Yes. Seeing this, Ben Urich, who had heard a lot about Daredevil, of course knew that this guy was here to deal with Kingpin. According to the mysterious words Eddie said to him last night, he must be a companion, so he turned and ran. At this time, Kingpin waved his hand, and the thugs behind him immediately chased after him. To Kingpin's surprise, the Night Devil did not move, but continued to stare at him, as if he didn't care about Ben Urich's life. Kingpin didn't care about this. He held his cane tightly, his face was cold, and his huge body was like a huge mountain, pressing down on Matt, who was transformed into Daredevil. Night Devil, you can't run away this time. Matt took out his nunchakus, and the two talented, outstanding fighting men who had touched the limits of human beings started fighting. Not far from them, Ben Urich, who had just run a few steps, was soon caught up by Kingpin's thugs and blocked in the alley. Just when Ben Urich thought he was cornered and couldn't escape, a group of men in black clothes and with cold expressions appeared in the corridors on both sides and shot at the thugs chasing him without hesitation. Bang bang bang. Ben Urich was stunned. Seeing the body lying in a pool of blood in front of him, he inexplicably thought of what Eddie said to him last night. Cooperate with us, you won't be disappointed. Eddie said, we have a staffing configuration that you can't even imagine. It can be said that it is God's arrangement. Kingpin is dead. Is this God's arrangement? Ben Urich muttered to himself. On the other side, Anton received the news at the Daily Bugle. Sure enough, Kingpin discovered Ben's actions, and he has already rushed to the nursing home. After reading the report, Anton saw that Eddie was a little worried, and smiled again. Don't worry, Night Stalker and the people of the High Table are guarding Ben, and he will be fine. You might as well think about how we should deal with the killer sent by Kingpin to the Daily Bugle to kill us. Leave it to me. Eddie nodded and snorted disdainfully. I haven't transformed for several days. It's time to let New York know the name Venom. Oh. Venom's voice suddenly sounded in his heart. Venom complained, can I finally eat bad guys? New York told you differently. You told me before that there are bad guys everywhere here. There are 3 updates today, one for New Year's Day and the other for a piece of bad news. Editor-in-charge Y told me that the performance has not been good recently. Although it is in the recommended position this week, the follow-up reading has basically not changed. If the score strength does not rise next week, it is probably the last chance. This is the only way. I'm actually quite grateful to Mr. Y for his diligence and encouragement from the very beginning. It was me who didn't seize the opportunity and couldn't get up after being recommended. Reading this stuff cannot be done by readers alone, but also depends on the work itself. I also know that my level is limited. This book is a bit slow to warm up, but I'm still unwilling to give up. If there are friends who keep reading this book, please click in and take a look when it is updated every day. It would be even better if you can remember to vote for the recommendation. Thank you everyone. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.